What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Smash JT. I just had to get this off my chest. I don't know how long this video is going to be, but it. What's going on, guys? I don't know if this is live. I've never streamed from this computer in my house before, but let me know if you're here. There we go. We're getting people. First thumbs up. Good morning. Live streaming your own video. Yeah, YouTube won't play them for me to people, so I gotta live stream and play them for you. No, I was checking the audio levels because right now the official stream is not live, so I couldn't test the actual audio of it. But what's up, Thomas McDougal? Ray R reviewing. Yeah, no, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it. The House Committee on Financial Services is going to start in about 13 minutes from now. So, yeah, I'm interested to see what they say, how this goes, and if anything's going to come from it. It's a very frustrating situation from someone on the side of Roaring Kitty or DFV, depending on how you know him. It's funny because when I first started investing in GameStop, like, what's this for? The stock market? Yeah, exactly, it is, yeah. When I first started investing in GameStop, like, I was looking on YouTube for, like, people who had similar feelings about the company that I did. And I literally was searching, like, GameStop stock, like, a year ago. And I found Roaring Kitty doing a live stream. And there were, like, 6 or 7 people in the live stream. And that was it. And he would stream for, like, 8 to 10 hours sometimes. It was like 6 people in the stream just chatting about GameStop. And I loved it. It was super chill. You plan to do a follow-up video? I do, Rayar. It depends on a multitude of factors, but tentatively, yes, I am planning on making a video on that, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it was funny because, like, I was watching the videos and I got to meet all these people that had similar thoughts on the stock that I did, and nobody listened to us. Nobody cared. It was funny. It was like 7 months of us going to these live streams with like 8 to 12 people, we'll say, at the max, for like 6 months of that. And then once GameStop started getting some traction, once the whole Ryan Cohen takeover thing started happening, it started putting everything in motion. The ball started picking up steam, rolling downhill. And man, it was funny to see Roaring Kitty's live streams that I was used to, with like 6 to 8 to 12 people in it, blow up to have like 1,000 people or more in them. And I mean, he handled it like a champ. It's crazy, but the whole situation was just it's mind blowing how now he is being sued. He is being investigated by the House Committee. The SEC is looking into him. The Massachusetts Senate is looking into him. It's just funny because it's like all he did was like a stock, and it just happened to be a stock that picked up a lot of attention for a multitude of factors. And now he's in trouble because the stock did well, and they're trying to say that he somehow had the power to manipulate millions of people into buying a specific stock, which, as far as far-fetched theories go, that one's pretty out there. So, yeah, I'm interested to see where this goes, but I really feel for him because I know him. I'd say I know him on a personal level just because I've been on his live streams back when there was nobody there. So he knows who I am. I know who he is, and I can vouch for Roaring Kitty, Keith, or DFV, Deep Fucking Value, as a good guy, a guy that just cared about a stock and wanted to have a good time talking about a stock, and is only in trouble because the stock did well. Like, it's funny. This is Exhibit A as to how money can manipulate a situation and make people just. It really shows the true colors of people. What's up, CM Retro? How's it going, buddy? Um, so interested to see, like I said, where this goes. We got 8 minutes and 30 seconds left before it starts up, and I don't know how long it's going to go on for. It's probably going to be like, I would guess, an hour, maybe an hour and a half. We're going to have Citadel making comments. We're going to have Melvin Capital making comments. We're going to have Keith making comments. What's up, Collector Kev? What's up, Dave Foltz? We're going to have the House Committee asking questions, I would imagine, after they give their little spiels, their pre-prepped speeches that are actually already available online, and I read through them last night, and it was Roaring Kitty's story was really fascinating. Very real, very raw, very human. And it's funny pairing that up against these billionaires and how disconnected with reality they are. It's crazy. I have to say, Breakout on Miko looked awesome. I'm now 100% on the Miko. Yeah, I mean, it looks like a really fun game. I like how they removed the buffer effects every time the ball hit the paddle, that it would like shake the whole paddle and screen. It was hard to keep track of it because everything was moving really fast. So yeah, I think they're making some really good improvements to that game in particular. But yeah, you know where I stand on the Amico, for sure. Let me see. I could search some stuff on. Let me see here. If we got anything on Twitter, any updates? Oh wait, is this something new from Roaring Kitty today? Somebody posted this. What is this? Bloodsport? Is this Bloodsport? I can't remember. Rambo or Bloodsport? That might be Rambo, actually. Based off the red bandana and muscles on Sylvester Stallone, I'd imagine. In short, I like the stock. So this is 6 minutes ago, and he's already got 4,600 likes on it. He has blown up. Like, absolutely blown up. And it couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Like, he's so down to earth that it's funny to see a dude. Like, when I first started watching him, he had like 86 subs. And he was so like humble and casual. He never like acted cocky or anything like that. So it's just funny to see it all explode, and he's just like still the dude that had 86 subs and still just likes the stock. Which is a genius move, by the way, because you cannot get in trouble for investing in a stock that you like. Like, that's literally the stock market. I invested in GameStop as well because I like the story. I liked the potential catalysts that were surrounding it, and it was my opinion on that to invest in it, and it worked out. But it's funny, since it worked out, everyone's crying foul because they were betting against it, and all these rich billionaires betting against it. Just crazy. Dave Shirley, thank you very much. Yes, I would like to say I wouldn't miss this for the world, but it was more a matter of just making sure my my work schedule would allow to do this. That's why I didn't like announce it last night that I was going to be doing it, because I didn't know if I'd have the time or not to actually stream it or just cover it in a recap video afterwards. Let me see what we got on Wall Street Bets. I'm sure everyone and their mother is talking about this right now. Congressional hearings, DFV, GME, etc. Mega thread. So it's funny too, from someone who was initial investor in GameStop and somebody who followed Roaring Kitty from, hey, what's up, Bullcraft? Followed Roaring Kitty from when he had like 86 subscribers. Um, I had no idea. I didn't really go on Reddit that much. Like I knew what Reddit was, but I didn't really go on it that much. I once in a while, if someone linked something, I'd go on it, but I wouldn't like proactively search it or go to the forums. And then on Christmas Day, Roaring Kitty published a video on his YouTube channel, basically announcing that he is deep fucking value on Reddit, which blew everyone's minds that followed him because nobody knew who this mystery man was. And in that same video, he announced that he was now a millionaire, which I made a video basically covering that situation because I was like, holy crap, I had no idea how much money he had invested in it. I just thought he had, like, a couple bucks thrown into it. And then he made a few bucks off those. Like, I didn't know it was, like, big money. It turned into $1 million+ money at the time. And that was Christmas Day. That was before this whole thing blew up and went from, what was it, like $35-40 to $450 at the peak. So yeah. um but let me see here. There you go, Bullcraft. Yeah, sure thing. What's up, Ringfit? How you doing? And level 1 online is in here, I believe. I don't know. But yeah, we got a lot of different opinions. I mean, I had people after I made the video saying that I was investing in GameStop. I actually saw, not going to name any names, but I saw someone make a video about me investing in GameStop and making fun of me for doing it. And that video is no longer online. I wish I saved it because it was funny to hear how wrong someone could be about me, and then just kind of take it down and pretend like it never even happened. But it's the thing. I was an easy target to invest in GameStop when nobody liked it. A deep value investment, if you will. And I mean that's like the whole thing. It doesn't always work out. Deep value stocks by nature are very risky, and can um, ultimately go bankrupt, belly up, and you lose all your money on them. So they are extremely risky, and there's no guarantees about them. So making fun of someone who invested in a deep value stock is kind of like it's an easy target. It's like why would you? I don't get it, but I'm not gonna focus on that. It's funny how it felt like everybody was against GameStop for the longest time. Hell, some people, Review Tech USA, still is against GameStop, and I even made videos saying like, I don't know if it's going to be successful. I still don't know if GameStop will be able to turn this ship around and right the ship and make everything all dandy and turn it into the Chewy of video games. I don't know, but I think it's worth a flyer. Like, I think it's worth maybe seeing if that works out. I think it's kind of the new frontier. There's excitement around this that there hasn't been for a long time, maybe ever. So it's it's an interesting proposition, and I find it funny that everyone is just so, oh, GameStop's a blockbuster. They're not doing anything. They're not going to be successful. It's so easy to do that. It's like, why? Oh, what we got here? Why is there no audio? Why is there no audio? Let me refresh this. Mr. Kenneth Griffin. That's not Kenneth Griffin. That's not Ken Griffin. Why is there no audio? I wonder if they're not prepared. Here's how I see it. Invest in any company you want, your own risk. It's a free market. Do what you want. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Man, he looks a little nervous. I mean, I would be too. I'd be probably pissing my pants right now if I was him. Because this is just an average Joe. Like it's literally an average Joe that is. Okay, yeah, they're having some technical difficulties. Um, he's one of us. He is one of us, and to be put on the spot by the House Committee on Financial Services for this situation, it's absolutely unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. When we get more vaccines out, I think it will be totally possible to have GameStop be a hub of gaming. Yeah, exactly. Like that was the whole premise of me investing in it before the pandemic even started. So, I love Rowan Kitty. Yeah, I love that guy. I'll be right back. I just want to check on one thing.
Order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare a recess of the committee at any time. As a reminder, I ask all members to keep themselves muted when they are not being recognized. This will minimize disturbances while members are asking questions of our witnesses. The staff have been instructed not to mute members except where members
All right, here we go.
and there is inadvertent background noise. Members are also reminded that they may only participate in one remote proceeding at a time.
How are we doing on the audio here? Can you guys hear it all right?
Please keep your cameras on, and if you choose to attend a different remote proceeding, please turn your camera off. Today we will make
Yeah, Thomas, I've
and allow members
let me turn the video up.
to participate.
Is that better?
without their video function. If they are experiencing power outages that prevent them
The
from
audio is
having
super
their
low.
videos working. If members
Is that better, or do I need to turn it up more?
during the hearing, please identify yourself by name to facilitate the recognition.
Video needs to be
I
louder
also
still.
ask that members to be
Okay,
patient
hold on.
as the chair proceeds, given the nature of conducting committee business virtually.
More.
So,
Is that better?
this hearing is entitled Game Stopped. Who wins and loses when short sellers, social media, and retail investors collide. I now recognize myself for 3 minutes to give an opening statement. Good afternoon, everyone. This hearing will be the first in a series of hearings for the committee to examine the recent
Better.
market volatility involving GameStop and other stocks. I want to know how each of the witnesses here today and the companies they represent contributed to the historic trading events in January. This recent market volatility has put a national spotlight on institutional practices.
Let me fix
by
this
Wall
video. What's
Street
up, Kim?
firms and prompted discussion about the evolving role of technology and social media in our markets. These events have illuminated potential conflicts of interest and the predatory ways that certain funds operate, and they have demonstrated the enormous potential power of social media in our markets. They have also raised issues involving gamification of trading, potential harm to retail investors, and the business models of apps.
You don't give a shit about potential harm to retail investors. Give me a break.
Here to testify today.
Retail investors been losing their shirt for years. Now all of a sudden they care.
Melvin and Citadel, social media company, Reddit, trading app, Robinhood, as well as one of the retail investors involved. In subsequent hearings, we will hear from regulators and other experts regarding these events, including why Dodd-Frank rulemakings related to short-selling disclosures were never implemented. Many Americans feel that the system is stacked against them, and no matter what, Wall Street always wins. In this instance, many retail investors appeared motivated by a desire to beat Wall Street at its own game, and given the losses that many retail investors have sustained as a result of volatility in the system. There are many
Volatility,
that the system
aka
is
stopping
rigged against
allowing
them
people to
and
buy
staying
it.
in force. Others have noted that there are winners and there are losers in every trade in our financial markets. Our role as a financial services committee is to ensure fairness in our financial markets and system, robust protections for investors, and accountability for Wall Street. Today, we will hear firsthand from the witnesses regarding these events. The hearing will be an opportunity for this committee to get the facts about the role each of the entities, the witnesses represent, played in the events we are examining today. Now, I recognize the ranking member of the committee, the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. McHenry, for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And let me just begin by saying I believe Americans are far more sophisticated, informed, and capable than people in D.C. give them credit for. When I called for this hearing last month, I wanted this to be a fact-finding mission. We have speculation, we have headlines and finger-pointing, but we don't have the facts. We need facts, not just the salacious bits or nasty comments on Reddit. And look, there's plenty of that. We need the facts today. Now, some on the left are already floating new restrictions or things to, quote, protect these so-called uninformed retail investors who, in their eyes, don't know the difference between the
Oh God, now we got an echo.
Dow Jones without Congress telling them.
It was working fine, and now all of a sudden we got an echo.
We've learned anything
There we go. I think they
from
fixed
the
it.
past few weeks. It's that these average, everyday investors are pretty darn sophisticated. There is wisdom to the crowd. So let's zoom out on that idea just for a moment. The GameStop story represents a larger truth. A fundamental change is happening. Like never before, everyday investors can communicate, access more information, and work collectively to move markets, all in real time. Technology is fueling this revolution. Congress cannot put technology back in the box. GameStop is the culmination of years of pent-up frustration. That frustration is now paired with faster, cheaper, and better technology. Consider for a moment that for every story of someone being able to pay off their student debt from the GameStop trade, or conversely, every story of somebody who lost money, there were stories of those who said they were investing in protest. In protest, they would gladly risk losing money just to prove a point. And now, while no one should ever risk investing money that they cannot afford to lose, let's tell the truth of why someone would do something like that. The sad truth is the K-shaped economy is nothing new in our capital markets because the structural core of our regulations literally enshrined in
Let me see if I can.
Policies like the accredited investor definition blatantly pick winners and losers. If you're wealthy, you're good to go. And if you're not, you're deemed too dumb to be trusted with your own money. So a privileged few get to invest alongside Ivy League endowments, getting early access in private markets to the greatest returns of the last 2 generations. But not so fast for the average everyday investor. In the eyes of our government, you need to be protected. Protected from your own decisions, protected from your own money, protected.
Okay, I'm just bringing this up to see if I can.
So,
hold on 1 second.
You're left with a savings account which pays no interest. And if you need more money than that, well, we created a world where it's easier to go buy a lottery ticket.
Here, now we have GameStop in the corner here while this is going on.
Is it any wonder why the unhealthy dynamics of GameStop happened? It's time we get serious about equity and ownership in the American economy. We should live in a world where the construction worker or Uber driver trading on Robinhood
there we go
has the same access to equity shares in Robinhood itself as the white-collar employees who work there. Same goes for Reddit and Reddit users, by the way. Both contributed to its success. Why can't both share in its future success? So I'll conclude with a reminder for some of my colleagues who want to regulate more and more. In the 1980s, Massachusetts state regulators barred citizens from investing in what the Wall Street Journal called the latest in a cascade of stocks of high technology companies that occurred that year. What IPO is too risky in the eyes of the
Thoughts so
government?
far
Apple.
is
So
I like
shut
I like the
American
direction it's
public
going so
out
far.
from new
I'm
regulations, new
pleasantly
forms of
surprised.
taxation or so-called protections. Let's use this opportunity instead to side with them. So I'll begin where I started. Americans are far more sophisticated, informed, and capable than folks
David
CDC
Shirley.
give them credit for. And it's time our securities laws treat them that way.
Oh, look at that. It's curling straight up right now. I think
Thank
everyone's
you so
pleasantly
very
surprised
much.
with the direction it's going.
I'm so pleased that you are cooperating today and you were eager to join with us when we called for this committee. So I want to welcome today's distinguished witnesses to the committee. Mr. Balad Tenef is the Chief Executive Officer of Robinhood Markets Incorporated.
Put this guy
a company
behind
with a
bars.
trading app that after increased trading activity in GameStop and certain other stocks, restricted trading of those stocks for a period of time. Mr. Kenneth C. Griffin is the Chief Executive Officer of Citadel, LLC.
Put that guy
a
behind
firm
bars.
Which is one of Robinhood's main customers and sources of revenue, which also provided financial support to Melvin Capital Management LP when Melvin faced significant losses over GameStop and other trades. Gabriel
Yeah,
is
for
the
real,
Chief
David.
Executive Officer of Melvin Capital Management LP, which held a significant short position in GameStop and other stocks and experienced significant losses due to its positions. Steve Huffman is the Chief Executive Officer, co-founder of Reddit, a social media platform which is home to the subreddit Wall Street Bets, where retail investors discuss trading and where a large number of members discuss the purchase of GameStop and other stocks which experience volatility. Mr. Keith Gill
Volatility.
is a retail investor who posted on Reddit and YouTube regarding investing in GameStop and other stocks. Jennifer Gall is a director of financial regulation studies at the Cato Institute. Without objection, your written statements will be made part of the record. Each of you will have 5 minutes to summarize testimony.
Let's try to interrupt her.
It was I believe that there are only 3 minutes of Democratic opening statements, with the idea that the subcommittee chair on the Democratic side would be called as well.
Who's that?
And that's what I was told by your staff.
Well, thank you very much. If that is the order that has been organized, I will cease my introductions and I will call on you, Mr. Sherman, to please go ahead.
Nothing
and,
really, Angel.
Make
Not
an
yet.
opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Back in the day, the law school professor would create an exam where he'd weave together a story that would exemplify each of the issues in that area of the law.
This guy already looks like someone who is paid off by billionaires. Just the wrinkles on his face.
Which identifies most of the issues facing our capital markets. Short selling. Could there be limits or required additional disclosures? What do we do with market participants, whether they be on Reddit or on Wall Street, who are shorting a stock or buying a stock for the purpose of influencing its price?
This reminds me of the commercial where the dad doesn't even know how to hold the phone, where it cuts his head off. He's talking like this, and you can kind of like, he's not even centered on the camera.
Give price enhanced best execution, and are all traders being treated fairly, and is payment for order flow free to the consumer? We need to look at the plumbing, where it takes 2 days to settle a transaction, but also why is it the broker's capital?
Yeah, Rathy, it's nothing new, man. That's the way it's been since I started 3 years ago.
And finally, we need to look at the gamification and glorification of high-frequency trading. I thank the chairwoman for the time, and I hope that in the months to come, we have several hearings to explore these issues, and that we're able to pass legislation this year to deal with each of them, and I yield back.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes
Bullcraft,
the
exactly.
chairman of
That's
the
what I'm saying.
Subcommittee of Oversight and Investigations, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, for 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to express some concerns that I have. It is a fact that Citadel Securities has paid over $100 million
There we go.
in penalties. And my concern is this. It deals with whether we can allow a market maker's profits from misleading clients and improperly trading ahead of clients to become something as simple as the cost of doing business. The risk of punishments for violations must always exceed the rewards to deter the risk.
Yes.
I'm
Thank
concerned,
you.
and my hope is that we'll get some additional intelligence on how these punishments have impacted
These
the
guys would
rewards
gladly
that have been received.
pay a slap on the
Yeah.
wrist fine instead of the billions that they owe for doing it the right way.
To the introduction of our witnesses, I left off with Jennifer Scott, Director of Financial Regulation Studies at the Cato Institute.
Yeah, Caps,
Without
exactly.
objection, your written statements will be made part of the record. Each of you will have 5 minutes to summarize your testimony. You should be able to see a timer on your screen that will indicate how much time.
Her microphone
you
is
have
so much louder than
left.
everyone
Your timer will
else's.
go off
I'm sorry,
at the end
guys.
of your time. I would ask you to be mindful of the timer and quickly wrap up your testimony if you hear the chime. Now, before we begin with your oral testimonies, I would like to swear in the witnesses. I will call each of your names individually to respond. Would you please raise your hands? Do you solemnly swear to affirm that the testimony you will give before this committee in the matters now under consideration will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Mr. Citadel?
I do.
Mr. Griffin?
I do.
Mr. Plotkin?
Mr. Griffin has a lot of money.
Mr. Plotkin?
I was muted. I apologize. I do.
Thank you. Mr. Huffman?
That guy's got a lot of money
Mr.
too.
Gill? Ms.
Roaring
Hall?
Kitty.
I do.
Thank you very much. Let the record show that all of the witnesses answered in the affirmative. We will now begin with their oral testimonies. Mr. Tanab?
Exactly,
you are
David.
recognized for
Exactly.
5 minutes
That's
to
why I said in one of my
present your
videos too.
oral
The fine,
testimony.
they'd rather pay the fine than deal with the
Chairwoman Waters,
real
Ranking
consequence.
Member McHenry, members of the committee.
That guy,
My name is Vlad Tenev. and
that
I'm
guy
the
is
Chief Executive
evil.
Officer and
Some
co-founder
devil
of
horns on this
Robinhood.
guy.
Thank you for the invitation to speak about Robinhood and the millions of people we serve. Almost 8 years ago,
I
we
truly
advised
care
and
about the
founded
people
Robinhood.
that I
We
stole
believed
money
then,
from.
as we do now, that the financial system should be built to work for everyone, not just a select few. We dreamed of making investing more accessible, especially for people without a lot of money. The stock market is a powerful wealth creator, but nearly half of U.S. households participate in it.
Mr. Staff, I would like you to use your limited time to talk directly to what happened January 28th.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
your involvement in it.
Certainly.
Madam Chair, the witness has the opportunity to give their own testimony.
Excuse me, you are
Use
not,
your time for your questioning.
you are not recognized, Mr.
Whoever that is.
Please go right ahead and speak directly to the question.
McHenry.
Mr. McHenry, yes, of course.
We created Robinhood to economically empower all Americans by opening financial markets to them. I was born in Bulgaria.
Liar!
a country with a financial system that was on the verge of collapse. At the age of 5, I immigrated.
This is not answering Maxine's question, all right?
I have benefited from all America has to offer. And Robinhood's mission to democratize finance for all has a very...
What was your involvement in stopping the trade was the question.
From all backgrounds to invest, with no account minimums and 0 commissions. Contrary to some very misleading and highly uninformed reports, we see evidence that most of our customers are investing for the long term, with features like fractional shares, dividend reinvestment.
This is not
recurring
even
investments.
close to
Our
answering
customers
the
can start with
question.
small amounts and grow their investments in blue chip stocks and ETFs over time. We've always recognized the responsibility that comes with helping people invest. We'll continue to enhance our educational platform to help customers no matter where they are in their financial journey. Hundreds of free educational resources
Waste of
available to
time.
everyone
This is
on our firm
useless.
website right now. While markets fluctuate, this tells me our business model is working for everyday Americans. The total value of our customers' assets on Robinhood.
Why does
exceeds
any
the
of
net
this
amount
matter?
money they have deposited with us by over $35 billion. This tells me our business model is working for everyday Americans.
Except when
The
you
Robinhood
turn off the
users.
option to buy
Many
and screw
say
people.
That Robinhood has helped them to pay car loans, reduce student loan debt, meet daily bills, save for the future, and we're proud to serve them. You've invited me today to discuss the
Kim.
events of last month, and I welcome this opportunity. In late January, many
Maxine
brokerage
needs to
firms
ask
saw
the question
massive
again.
increase in trading activity in a handful of
Here we
stocks.
go. He's finally getting
Prices
to
were
it.
moving dramatically day to day, even hour to hour. One specific day, January 28th, proved to be a completely unprecedented event. The spike in trading activity and volatility meant that Robinhood Securities, our clearing broker, had to hold the line and post additional firm capital as collateral to support our clearinghouse deposit demands. To put it in perspective, on January 28th, our daily deposit requirement was 10 times more than on January 25th. As a result,
Exactly,
Robinhood
Rafi.
Securities, along with many other firms, imposed temporary trading restrictions.
If
on
you're
certain
gonna stop
securities.
people from having the option to buy it, you
Limited
gotta
buy
freeze
fees
the entire
for
stock. You
one day.
can't
And
do
we've since
allowed to
lifted
sell
the
but not
restrictions
allowed to buy. You
entirely.
can't do
There are
that.
2 points I want to make clear about these temporary
You halt the
restrictions.
stock. You halt it.
First,
You just freeze it
Robinhood
completely.
Securities put the restrictions in place in an effort to meet increased regulatory deposit requirements, not to help hedge funds. We don't answer to hedge funds. We serve the
Right.
millions of small investors.
That's what the hedge
who
funds
have
tell you to
everything
say,
to
of
invest.
course.
Second, Robinhood immediately secured additional funds. Altogether, through
From
capital
Citadel.
raising and other measures, we've increased our liquidity by more than $3 billion to cushion ourselves against increased collateral requirements and related market stress in the future. Despite the unprecedented market conditions in January,
We successfully
at the end of the
pulled
day,
through.
What happened is unacceptable to us.
Oh,
To our
wow.
customers, I'm sorry.
I'm
and
sorry,
I
yeah.
apologize. Please
Sorry we
know
stole all that
we
money
are
from
doing
you guys.
everything we can
We feel
to
really
make
bad
sure
about
this
it.
won't happen.
Please don't arrest me.
And I want to highlight one more thing. The existing 2-day period to settle trades exposes investors.
This
and
is what
industry
we call
to unnecessary
misdirection right now.
There is no
He's trying to
reason why the
blame
today's
it on
financial
something
system
else
in the
and
world
say
cannot
this is the
settle
problem,
trades
not
in
me,
time.
not what we did.
I believe
We
we
need to
can
focus on
and
this
should
other
act
issue
now
right now.
to
That's what he's
deploy
doing. That's
our
it's
intellectual
like
capital
clear as
and our
day.
engineering
Misdirection.
resources to
Misdirection.
move to real-time settlement. Together we can solve this. Before I close, I want to sincerely thank the millions of customers who continue to use Robinhood to access the markets every day. We are grateful and committed to you. Members of the committee, I appreciate the opportunity to answer your questions.
Yeah, exactly, Ring Fit.
Mr. Griffin, you are now recognized for 5 minutes to present your oral testimony.
GameStop stock is starting to go up.
Ranking Member McHenry,
after that.
distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today on the recent market events. The U.S. capital markets are the envy of the world.
This guy is a billionaire, multi-billionaire. He has more money than everyone in this chat room times 1,000
Important role in our capital markets.
combined.
According to Gallup, about 55% of Americans.
I do not trust a goddamn thing that comes out of this guy's mouth.
The largest market maker in the U.S. equities market executes more trades on behalf of retail
They
investors.
buy the order flow from Robinhood to front run trades, which is somehow legal but not,
in meeting the needs of retail
and
investors.
also are providing the backing for Gabe Plotkin and
Perfectly clear.
the investment firm.
We had no role in Robinhood's decision to limit trading in GameStop.
So he can say this, and if he gets caught, he'll just pay a fine. He will never go to jail. He'll never get in trouble. So there's nothing wrong with him saying We had no role in them turning that off.
All of us at
It's
Citadel
so
Securities
easy
are
for them
committed
to
healthy funding.
say it came through somewhere else, not us. Because they have so many subsidiary
I first
companies.
participated in the financial markets as a retail investor. In the late 1980s, while attending college, I traded stocks and options from my dorm room. My passion for investing led to my founding of Citadel in 1990. Today, Citadel is one of the world's leading alternative investment managers.
Citadel is the Illuminati.
Colleges, hospitals, foundations, and research institutions. In 2002, my partners and I founded Citadel Securities. Today, Citadel Securities
front-run
is one of the
trades.
world's preeminent market makers. We've been a leader in using technology to transform our markets, particularly for retail investors. Citadel Securities invests hundreds of millions of dollars each year to serve the needs of our customers. In the last week of January, the importance of this investment was on full display. During the period of frenzied retail equities trading, Citadel Securities was able to provide continuous liquidity every minute of every trading day. When others were unable or unwilling to handle the heavy volumes, Citadel Securities was there.
Oh, so
On Wednesday,
now not only
January 26th,
is he lying through his teeth,
we executed
but he's trying to
7
act like the hero here.
more
This is,
million
you can't make this stuff
on
up.
behalf of retail investors. To put this in
Oh,
perspective,
man.
on that day, Citadel Securities executed more shares for retail investors than the entire average daily volume.
You should be groveling at our feet and thanking us.
The magnitude of the orders brought to Citadel Securities reflects the confidence of the retail brokerage community in our firm's ability to deliver in all market conditions, and underscores the critical importance of our resilient and stable systems. I could not be more proud of our team at Citadel Securities. My colleagues who were committed to ensuring that the interests of America's retail investors were served during this extraordinary period. Once again, I appreciate the opportunity to appear today, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin.
I
Mr.
can't.
Parkin, you're now recognized for 5 minutes to present your oral testimony.
That's too damn loud. Should I turn it down?
Chairwoman Waters, Ranking Member McHenry, and members of the committee, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to share Melvin Capital's perspective on the recent trading activity in GameStop.
We lost
I am the founder
over
and chief
$6
investment
billion.
officer of Melvin Capital. I'm humbled by these unprecedented events. Many investors on all sides have experienced losses. I am here today to share my own personal experience and to be helpful in this conversation. I understand that part of the focus of this hearing is the decision of stock trading platforms to limit trading in GameStop. I want to make clear at the outset that Melvin Capital played absolutely no role in those trading platform decisions.
Right.
In fact, Melvin closed out all of its positions in GameStop days before the platforms put those limitations in place.
Right.
Like you, we learned about those limits from news reports.
Right.
I just want to make clear at the outset
supposed to believe
that
all
contrary to
this?
many reports,
This
Melvin
is
Capital
crazy.
not bailed out in the midst of these events. Citadel proactively reached out to become a new investor, similar to the investments
How
others in the
convenient!
platforms. It was
All
an
these
opportunity
magical
for
things
Citadel
that
to
happen
buy
behind
low
closed
and earn
doors.
returns for its investors if and when our fund's value went up. To be sure, Melvin was managing through a difficult time, but we always had margin excess and we were not seeking a cash infusion. I am here testifying today far removed from my background. I grew up in a middle-class family in Portland, Maine. I went to a public high school. I studied hard and got into a good college. Upon graduation, I did not have a job. Today, I'm married with 4 children, and my time is spent with my family and on Melvin Capital, which I founded 6 years ago. I named Melvin after my grandfather, who ran a convenience store. I wanted the firm to represent his values, integrity, hard work, taking care of customers and employees, and commitment to excellence. Melvin Capital manages a hedge fund. Investors such as academic institutions, medical research, and other charitable foundations,
David Shirley with the
pension
facts
funds,
here.
retirees, and others invest with us. We have 36 employees and hundreds of investors.
Totally straight
I
shooters.
feel a
You can
personal
trust
privilege
everything
to
they're
all of
saying here, of course.
Melvin specializes in the consumer and technology sector, including companies like GameStop, AutoZone, and Expedia. Most of our investments are long. In other words, we buy stock in companies that create jobs, grow the economy, and develop new products for consumers.
Oh, what a good
We
guy.
do
Good
this
guy,
after
Gabe
extensive
Plotkin.
fundamental research,
We had him all wrong,
sometimes
guys.
years.
He's such a good
When our
guy.
research convinces us that a company will grow relative to expectations, we make a long-term investment.
Yeah.
When our research suggests a company will not live up to expectations and its stock price is overvalued, we might short a stock. Like with our long positions, our practice is to short a stock for the long term after extensive research. We also short stocks because when the markets go down, we have a duty to protect our investors' capital. There are laws governing shorting stock, and of course, we always follow them. In addition, it's very important to understand that absolutely none of Melvin's short positions
In
require
addition,
any effort
I am
to
a
artificially
robot.
depress or manipulate downward the price of a stock. Nothing about our short position prevents a company from achieving its objectives. It is just Melvin's view about whether it will. Specific to GameStop, we had a research-supported view well before the recent events. In fact, we had been short GameStop since Melvin's inception 6 years earlier, because we believed and still believe that its business model, selling new and used video games in physical stores, is being overtaken by digital downloads through the internet. And that trend only accelerated in 2020 when, because of the pandemic, people were downloading video games at home. As a result, the gaming industry had its best year ever, but GameStop had significant losses. In
Actually,
January 2021,
GameStop
a group on
didn't
Reddit,
have
Games Made
significant
Close,
losses. They paid
about
off their
Melvin's
debts. They
specific
made
investments.
money.
They took
The hell's he
information
talking about?
contained in our SEC filings and encouraged others to trade in the opposite direction. Many of these posts were laced with anti-Semitic slurs.
Oh, there it
and
is!
others.
Daniel C.
The posts
called
said
it.
Things like, "It's very clear we need a second Holocaust. The Jews
Wow.
can't keep getting away with it." Others sent similarly profane and racist text messages to me. In the frenzy
And
of
that's
January,
just unacceptable.
GameStop stock rose from $17
The internet
to a peak
said
of
mean things to me.
$483. I do not think anyone would claim that the price had any relationship to the intrinsic value of the business. The unfortunate part of this episode is that ordinary investors who were convinced by a misleading frenzy to buy GameStop at $100, $200, or even $483 have now lost significant amounts.
Because Robinhood
Melvin started
stopped
closing
buying
positions in
orders.
GameStop at a loss. Not because our investment thesis had changed, but because something unprecedented was happening. We also reduced many other Melvin positions at significant losses, both long and short, that were the subject of similar posts. I'm personally humbled by what happened in January. Investors in Melvin suffered significant losses. It is now our job to earn it back. And while I do not think that anyone could have anticipated these events, I have learned much from them and I'm taking steps to protect our investors from anything like this happening in the future. I look forward to answering your questions.
Awkward silence, go.
Thank you, Mr. Plotkin. Mr. Huffman, you are now recognized for 5 minutes to present your
Exactly,
own
Ring
testimony.
Fit.
Thank you. Madam Chairwoman, Mr. Ranking Member, honorable members of the committee, my name is Steve Huffman. I am the co-founder and CEO of Reddit, and I'm pleased to talk with you today about how Reddit works and what we have seen on our site in the past few weeks. Reddit's mission is to bring community and belonging to everyone in the world. What started in 2005 as a single community has since evolved into a vast network of many thousands of communities. They range from standard topics like news, sports, politics, to internet culture, to support. For example, our unemployment community has become a source of support for hundreds of thousands of Americans who have turned to Reddit after losing their jobs during the pandemic. Our communities are created and run by our users. Because of this, we describe Reddit as the most human place on the internet. Though we are small compared to the largest platforms, our communities provide an online home for millions of people every day. I'd like to share a bit about how content moderation on Reddit works. Reddit's moderation system starts with our content policy.
Yeah, for
The
real,
platform
Thomas.
is one
Who'd have thought?
which all
We're living in
communities must follow.
bizarro world here.
Among other things, these rules prohibit hate, harassment, bullying, and illegal activity on Reddit, and they are enforced by Reddit's anti-evil team, which is composed of engineers, data scientists, and other specialists. This team also ensures the integrity of the site, and we have continuously honed our methods to stay ahead of bad actors to protect Reddit from manipulation, spam, and other threats. This team searched high and low for the specific comment mentioned in the previous testimony, or anything like it. The closest we could find was a single comment that received no votes and was deleted within 5 minutes. Such speech is not tolerated on Reddit, and we will of course investigate any further claims of this nature. Centralized
So they
moderation
just
is
called
common,
out a blatant
but
lie
Reddit
by
additionally
Melvin
uses a
Capital
governance
right there,
structure akin
for
to
those
the
who are
federal
keeping
government,
score.
where the aforementioned policies and teams represent the federal government and the communities themselves represent states. All communities, or subreddits, are created by users that we call moderators. They set the community's rules, which may be as strict as they like as long as they are not in conflict with the platform-wide policies, and they have a variety of tools of enforcing these rules independently. Moderators are not paid employees, but rather users who are passionate about their communities. They have the context and judgment to make decisions no algorithm could. The members of each community contribute both the content itself and the ranking of it by voting up or down on any post or comment. Unlike other platforms where submission has a built-in audience through the author's follower count, every piece of content on Reddit, no matter how famous the author, starts at 0 and has to earn its visibility. Through their votes, the community itself enforces not just the explicit rules of their community, but also the unwritten rules that define their culture. This layered approach has helped our users create the most authentic communities online. The specific community we'd like to talk about today is Wall Street Bets. It's important to understand that Wall Street Bets is one of many finance and investing related communities on Reddit. This particular community specializes in higher risk, higher reward investments than what you might find in other more conservative financial communities on Reddit, with such names as personal finance, investing, and financial independence. I will stress that Wall Street Bets is first and foremost a real community. The self-deprecating jokes, the memes, the crass at times language all reflect this. If you spend any time on Wall Street Bets, you'll find a significant depth to this community exhibited by the affection its members show one another. They are just as quick to support a fellow member after a big loss as they are to celebrate after a big gain. A few weeks ago, we saw the power of community in general and of this community in particular.
What's up, Joel?
The traders of Wall Street Bets banded together at first to seize an investment opportunity not usually accessible to retail investors.
This is
but
just
later, more broadly, to defend all
the
retail
co-founder of Reddit
investors
just
against the criticism
explaining
of financial
to
strategy.
politicians what Reddit
With
is,
the
because
increase in attention,
politicians
Wall
have
Street
no
Bets
idea what Reddit
unsurprisingly
even
faced a
is.
surge in traffic and new users. At Reddit, our first duty in these situations is to our communities, and our role in this moment was to keep Wall Street Bets online. Working around the clock, we scaled our infrastructure, made technology changes to help this community withstand the onslaught of traffic, and we acted as diplomats to help resolve conflict within Wall Street Bets leadership. We have since analyzed the activity in Wall Street Bets to determine whether bots, foreign agents, or other bad actors played a significant role. They have not. In every metric we checked, the activity in Wall Street Bets was well within normal parameters, and its moderation tools were working as expected. We will, of course, cooperate with valid legal requests from federal and state regulators. That said, we do believe that this community was well within the bounds of our own policies. To conclude, I would like to reiterate why it is important to protect online communities like Wall Street Bets. Wall Street Bets may look sophomoric or chaotic from the outside, but the fact that we're here today means they've managed to raise important issues about fairness and opportunity in our financial system.
Yes.
I'm proud they use Reddit to do so. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Huffman. Mr. Gill, you are now recognized for 5 minutes.
There we go.
To present your oral testimony.
The guy we all came here for.
Thank you, Chairwoman Waters, Ranking Member McHenry.
I love this guy.
Members of the committee. I'm happy to discuss with the committee my purchases of GameStop shares and my discussions of their fair value on social media. It is true that my investment in that company multiplied in value many times. For that, I feel enormously fortunate. I also believe the current price of the shares demonstrates that I've been right about the company. A few things I am not. I'm not a cat. I am not an institutional investor, nor am I a hedge fund. I do not have clients, and I do not provide personalized investment advice for fees or commissions. I'm just an individual whose investment in GameStop and posts on social media were based upon my own research and analysis. I grew up in Brockton, Massachusetts. My family
Represent.
was not wealthy. My father was a truck driver, and my mom a registered nurse. I was one of 3 kids, and the first in my family to earn a 4-year college degree when I graduated from Stonehill College in 2009.
My brother went there.
So it was not a good time to be looking for a job. From 2010 to 2017, I worked at a few startup companies, but there were significant periods when I was unemployed. I took an interest in the stock market, and even though I had very little money, I used those times to educate myself and learn
Yeah, I
more
read this
about
testimony last night. It was incredible.
2019, after nearly 2 years unemployed,
The part of his
I
sister.
accepted a marketing and financial
Brutal.
education job at MassMutual. my wife Caroline and I were thrilled that I had an income and benefits. My job was to help develop financial education classes that advisors could present to prospective clients. I was not a stockbroker or a financial advisor. I did not talk to clients, and I did not recommend stocks for them to buy.
He's doing great, yeah.
Before and after I joined MassMutual, I studied and followed stocks. One of those was GameStop. In early June of 2019, the price of GameStop stock declined below what I thought was its fair value. I invested in GameStop in 2019 and 2020 because, as I studied the company, I became more and more confident in my analysis. Two important
This is
factors,
great news for
based entirely
GameStop.
on publicly available information, gave me confidence that GameStop was undervalued.
Yeah, look at the stock spiking with him talking about it being
The market was
undervalued.
underestimating the prospects of GameStop's legacy business and overestimating the likelihood of bankruptcy. I grew up playing video games and shopping at GameStop, and I plan to continue shopping there. GameStop stores still provide real value to consumers and reliable revenue for GameStop. Second, I believe that GameStop has the potential to reinvent itself as the ultimate destination for gamers within the rapidly growing $200 billion gaming industry.
Look at the
GameStop
stock,
has a unique
guys.
opportunity to pivot toward a technology-driven business.
This is incredible.
By embracing the digital economy, GameStop may be able to find new revenue streams that vastly exceed the value of its business. I am hardly the only person who has advocated these points. When I wrote and spoke about GameStop on social media with other individual investors, our conversations were no different from people in a bar or on a golf course or at home talking or arguing about a stock. Hedge funds and other Wall Street firms have teams of analysts working together to compile research and analyze shares of companies. Individual investors
He
do not
is
have the
literally
resources.
moving the needle right now,
Social
like
media
straight
platforms
up.
like
That's
Reddit,
crazy.
YouTube, and Twitter are leveling the playing field. The idea that I use social media to promote GameStop stock to unwitting investors and influence the market is preposterous. My post did not cause the movement of billions of dollars into GameStop shares. It is tragic that some people lost money, and my heart goes out to them. But what happened in January just demonstrates again that investing in public securities is extremely risky. As I said earlier, I consider myself and my family fortunate with our investment. When the stock price broke $20 in December, I knew my investment was a success. I was so happy to visit my family in Brockton for the holidays.
This is
The money
really
goes
sad
such a
right
long way
here,
for us.
this part.
We had an incredibly difficult 2020. Most difficult was the tragic and unexpected loss of my sister Sarah in June. I am grateful to be in a position to give back to and support my family. As for what happened in January, others will have to explain it. It's alarming how little we know about the inner workings of the market. And I am thankful that this committee is examining what happened. I also want to say that I support retail investors' right to invest in what they want, when they want. I support the right of individuals to send a message based on how they invest. As for me, I like the stock. I'm as bullish as I've ever been on a potential turnaround for GameStop, and I remain invested in the company. Thank you. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers. There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. Ms. Schlupp, you are now recognized for 5 minutes to present your oral testimony.
Yeah, I just saw the bandana in the background. That's great.
Chairwoman Waters, Ranking Member McHenry, and distinguished members of the Committee on Financial Services. My name is Jennifer Schulp, and I am the Director of Financial Regulation Studies at the Cato Institute's Center for Monetary and Financial Alternatives. Thank you for the opportunity to take part in today's hearing. Before addressing the GameStop phenomenon specifically, I'd like to talk about the participation of retail or individual investors in our public equities markets. Retail participation has ebbed and flowed over the years, but the recent upward trend accelerated sharply during the pandemic. Most point to zero commission trading, but several other factors also likely attracted retail investors, including fractional share trading, low account minimums, and easy app-based platforms. More time at home during the pandemic probably even played a role. Retail participation in our equities markets is important. The fact that retail investors behave differently from institutional ones and differently from each other can be particularly valuable in times of market stress. In fact, individual investors may have helped stabilize the market in March 2020. Importantly, investing in the stock market also provides a path to wealth for individual investors. But stock ownership traditionally has been skewed towards the already wealthy, and it is highly correlated with race, education, and age.
Yep.
Retail investors making up this new surge are different. Recent research by the FINRA Investor Education Foundation and NORC at the University of Chicago found that investors who opened accounts for the first time in 2020 were younger, had lower incomes, and were more racially diverse. These new investors also held lower account balances. This may portend, as one of the researchers noted, quote, a shift towards more equitable investment participation. These new opportunities for individuals to grow their wealth should be welcomed and expanded, not restricted. Now I'll turn to GameStop. At the outset, I will note that it is difficult to analyze the impact of the trading in GameStop and other stocks because many facts are unknown. But some things seem clear. Importantly, the temporary volatility in these stocks did not present a systemic risk to market function. As the Treasury Department recognized, the market's, quote, core infrastructure was resilient during high volatility and heavy trading.
Look at that spike on the stock.
This is not
Jeez.
surprising. Despite the huge trading volume and rapid increase in value, only a small part of the market was affected, and spillover effects on the wider market were mild and short-lived. The fact that GameStop traded temporarily, and perhaps still trades above fair estimates of the company's value, is not, by itself, a reason for concern. Stock prices move in and out of alignment all the time, and markets are no strangers to bubbles. If a company is valued by the market differently than a review of its fundamentals suggests, it might indicate that the analysis is missing relevant information about a company's prospects.
Thank you.
Or it might indicate that the company's stock price is due for a correction. The market's mechanisms, including the tool of short selling, generally work well to handle these circumstances. Stepping in to prevent trading where a stock price moves contrary to conventional wisdom could deprive the market of important information. The SEC, among a host of others, is reviewing the relevant trading and conducting a study of the events. The SEC will have access to far more information than has been made publicly available, and I believe it has the tools necessary to address any harmful misconduct that may have occurred. I cannot opine on whether any regulatory changes are warranted on this incomplete record. I tend to believe the answer will be no in light of the minimal impact on the market's function. But if regulators learn more, there may be areas identified for improvement. By no means, though, should these events lead to restrictions on retail investors' access to the markets.
Yeah.
Thank you, and I welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Sharp. I now recognize myself 5 minutes for questions. The market volatility surrounding GameStop and other securities has highlighted how many people feel that the cards are stacked against them, and that market participants, like our witnesses, hide the ball. Mr. Taneve, you explained that Robinhood restricted transactions in certain securities to meet demands coming from your clearinghouse, and yet, on January 28th, you represented to the media that there was no liquidity problem. Isn't it true?
Oh,
that
yeah, I'm glad she came with that one.
Capital to meet deposit requirements?
There's no liquidity issue.
Liquidity problem?
We just have a liquidity issue.
Answer yes or no.
Chairwoman Waters, I appreciate the opportunity to address that.
Yes or no? Yes or
We always
no?
felt comfortable
Yes
about
or no?
capital that Robinhood raised.
Please answer yes or no.
We always felt
To get through
comfortable
my
that
5
with
minutes, I don't have time.
She's
I
got
just
the
need
gavel.
Yes or no answer.
Yes or no?
I stand by my statement. The additional capital we
Yes
raised
or
wasn't to meet
no?
capital requirements or deposit.
Do you not know how to answer a question?
Excuse me.
I'm reclaiming my time. This liquidity problem had real consequences for your customers.
Bad look, Vlad.
I
Bad
wonder
look.
if they were all that surprised. Between December 2019 and December 2020, Robinhood customers
Oh, am I shouting? I'm sorry.
experienced monetary losses.
My-
due to system
mine's super
outages.
loud. Sorry about
Customer
that.
accounts were reportedly compromised. The firm repeatedly failed to testify its best execution obligations, and it misled its customers regarding its revenue sources. It seems retail investors often get a bad deal at Robinhood. Mr. Tenney, also, while you testified today that, quote, Robinhood's customers benefit greatly from payment for order flow, quote unquote, in December 2020, the SEC charged Robinhood for not disclosing that it was getting paid to send customer trades to Citadel Securities
Interesting.
and other market makers, and for not seeking the best terms.
It's hard to
for
hear the
its
video.
customers' orders. Robinhood provided such inferior trade prices it cost your customers over $34
What's up,
million.
Ryan? How you doing?
Here's your testimony after Robinhood paid. Is it your testimony after Robinhood paid the SEC $65 million to settle those charges?
Woo!
That this conflict of interest is in your customer's best interest?
What's up,
yes
Pest?
Or no?
Yes or no?
Chairwoman Waters, first let me say regulatory compliance
Yes
is at
or
the center of
no.
everything that we do. We've made mistakes in the past. I'm not claiming that.
Good, man.
Go to that question.
So Citadel Securities is an important counterparty.
Yes or
Nobody's denying
no?
that. The reason that
Gentlemen, can answer yes or no. I'm reclaiming my time. Meanwhile, Mr. Griffin, Citadel's role in this event also raises
Love it.
significant questions for policymakers. Citadel Securities pays
She is
Robinhood
embarrassing
tens of
him right
millions of
now.
dollars
I love
to
it.
process trades by Robinhood's customers. This relationship gives Citadel Enterprise key non-public information as to direction and volume of trades by retail investors. Your firm makes use of private exchanges.
I'm sorry,
called
Duke.
dark pools and
I'll try
other,
not to yell. I just get excited.
off-exchange trading to trade large sizes without moving the market against you. In fact,
I'll turn my
at some
mic down.
point last month, 50% of all trades occurred in dark pools or via OTC.
There, I turned my mic down. Is that better?
trades. Your business strategy is designed intentionally to undermine
Yeah, Past, I
market
got mine last
transparency
night.
and skim profits from companies and other investors. One problem, though, Mr. Griffin, is that we don't really know how central your firm has become to the capital markets. Mr. Griffin, does Citadel handle 47% of the U.S. listed retail volume? Please, yes or no?
Excuse me, Chairman Waters, what percentage? I couldn't hear that number.
47%.
So, Chairman Waters, to the best
Yes or no?
So the odd, that's my knowledge, we handle in excess of roughly 40% of all retail volume.
Thank you very much for reclaiming my time. Mr. Griffin, on January 27, the Citadel execute 7.4
That is
billion shares
insane.
for retail investors, which would be more trades than the average daily volume of the entire United States equities market in 2019, yes or no?
Reclaiming my time needs to be a meme.
Was
Yes.
my written and oral testimony.
Thank you very much. And with that, I now recognize the distinguished ranking member, Mr. McHenry.
Is my mic audio good or is it still too loud?
All right, thank you. Mr. Tenney, I'm going to come to you first. I just want to get to what happened on that day in January. So let's take a step back here. You get a call in the middle of the night, according to what I've heard you in interviews say.
Here we go.
And based off that conversation with your compliance team, you decided
All right, cool.
to halt
Thanks.
the buying of GameStop stock. People were furious. We'll get into the regulations and the settlement parts of that today. We will get to that. But this is what I think needs to be answered about your decision. Why did Robinhood restrict the buying but not the selling
Yes.
of GameStop?
Yes.
And why did
Thank
folks get
you.
locked out on the buy side only?
Ranking Member McHenry, I appreciate the opportunity to address that. The reason that Robinhood...
We didn't want to hold
let me
people's
say
money.
Robinhood is always committed to providing access. It's in our name. It's in everything that we do. The decision to restrict GameStop and other securities was driven purely by deposit and collateral requirements imposed by our clearinghouses. So, buying
Why?
securities.
But why?
Buying securities
Why-
increases our collateral requirements. Selling does not. Moreover, preventing customers from selling is a very difficult and painful experience.
Turn it down a
where
little more.
customers are unable to access their money. So
Is
we
that
don't
better?
want to impose that type of experience on our customers unless we have no other choice. And even though I recognize customers were very upset and disappointed that we had to do this,
Citadel paid me a lot of money to
I
make that
think it would be
decision.
worse if we prevented customers from selling.
Okay, so let me ask this question. Is payment for order flow legal?
Yes, payment for order flow is legal and regulated
And
and
is
a
this
common industry.
disclosed? And is this disclosed to those users of your app?
Yes, payment for order flow is disclosed in multiple places, and moreover, payment for order flow enables.
He loves that
commission-free
moreover
trading,
word.
and that's why it's become the industry standard model as other brokerages have replicated our model and started offering commission-free trading to their customers as well.
Okay, so to that to this greater point of what happened that day and the model that you're using, let's be crystal clear. That decision you made to restrict the buying but not the selling of GameStop was was it based on pressure from anyone on the witness panel here today?
He's
Not
obviously
at all.
going to say
Zero
no.
pressure from anyone. It was a collateral depository.
Because he knows he's screwed if they find out either way. So why would he be honest here? You know, there's no benefit to being like, yeah, Citadel told me to do it.
Let me get in this question. You want to democratize finance. You want to open up Wall Street to retail investors. You say that Robinhood's mission is to democratize finance for all. So let's talk about that. So yes or no? Can a Robinhood customer invest in Robinhood the company?
There, is that better for my
Robinhood's
mic?
currently a
Sorry about
private
that, Michael.
company, so that's not possible. No.
And so you mean to tell me that the people that use your platform, that make you a successful company, and I would say directly contribute to your company's exponential growth and success, they don't get the same access to equity shares as a Robinhood employee or your institutional investors. Is that correct?
Currently, that is correct. Yes.
All right, cool.
All right, Ms. Schultz, let me pivot to you. Why is that? Why is it that everyday investors on the Robinhood app, people that I would argue,
I want him to focus more on the why did he not just halt the stock? Why do you allow people to
The
sell it
SEC
question?
limits a lot of investment in private companies to those folks that are known as accredited investors. And to become an accredited investor, you have to have meet a wealth test of earning at least $200,000 a year, or having a net worth of over $1 million. The vast majority of people in this country don't meet that standard and are unable to invest in most private companies.
Okay, so let me just clear this. Mr. Tinev, I don't blame you for the restriction you put on your customers not being able to invest in equity. I'd like to have more opportunity to ask Mr. Gill his thoughts on this, but let me just say this. I don't fault you for the inequitable regulatory structure that DC has created, but I think we need to clear this up. Final thing, Madam Chair, I have for the record, I'd like to submit a letter from the DTCC, which is the clearing company, that was not on the panel today, and your staff has this letter.
Order.
All right, thank you all, and look forward to getting to the facts that matter here today.
Other members, Ms. Maloney? You
Thank you,
recognize.
Chairwoman Waters, and Ranking Member McHenry for convening this hearing. I hope today's hearing sheds light on how our markets are working, or in many cases are not working, for smaller investors and ways we can fix that.
Yes,
The
sir.
events of late January saw tremendous volatility and stock prices
that
were
good, Bullcraft?
totally divorced from market fundamentals. The whole enterprise was viewed by some as a giant video game, trading stocks instead of properties and monopoly money. But it's not all fun and games, because people can lose their life savings, their hard-earned
That's
cash,
the stock
and
market.
tragically,
That's the way it's always
last summer
been.
we know of at least one suicide linked to potential trading losses.
Holy crap.
Beyond those
One
possible
suicide?
losses, the actions
One?
of Robinhood and other trading platforms during the GameStop frenzy
She needs more
caused
flags.
confusion, anger,
What's up,
and
Lance?
undermined investor confidence in the fundamental fairness of our capital markets. None of this is healthy for our markets or good for investors. What makes markets work fairly is when everyone knows the rules and that the rules remain consistent and predictable and are enforced. But because of Robinhood's actions, too many customers did not get that predictability. Many retail investors woke up on January 28th to find that they could no longer buy and sell stocks the same way they could the days prior. And they were being treated differently than other market participants who could still buy and sell those same stocks. So I don't blame them for thinking that things were stacked against the little guy. Mr. Tinnett, you stated in your testimony that Robinhood restricted trading for certain securities, including GameStop, in order to meet your financial requirements with your clearinghouse. But when I go to Robinhood's website and the blog post you initially released on January 28th, your financial requirements with your clearinghouse are not mentioned. You only mention market volatility. When I review the Robinhood customer
Interesting.
agreement, you don't include specifics on how
She's
and
really
when
good.
you may decide to restrict trading, which you did. And you don't include any language or disclosures regarding your capital requirements. It only includes vague language that at any time and in its sole discretion, Robinhood can restrict trading. In other words, you seem to reserve the right to make up the rules as you go along.
Yeah.
So I have two questions for you. First, do you think you owe your customers more disclosure and transparency than you gave them? And second, do you believe your lack of candor with your customers might have contributed to the wild speculation and confusion that resulted in the aftermath of your trading restrictions?
Congresswoman, I appreciate the question. So to answer the second question, look, I'm sorry for what happened. I apologize, and I'm not gonna say that Robinhood.
Put this guy in prison. Are you kidding me? What? Give me a break. Give me. I can't even with this guy.
Is making sure that we improve from this, we learn from it.
He should be wearing like the cartoon jail cell shirt and hat.
Robinhood as an organization will learn from this and improve to make sure it doesn't happen again. And I'll make sure of that.
Well, I expect we will experience future events with increased volatility, and Robinhood's recent actions appeared arbitrary, which is why I don't blame customers for feeling treated unfairly.
What's up, Chris?
Your trading restrictions came out of the blue, and your communication was not clear. So my next question, Mr. Tinnett, looking forward, what operational changes is Robinhood making to better respond to future market volatility, to improve
that wall is actually a PlayStation 5 behind me,
and to ensure retail customers don't get the rug pulled out from under them at the last minute?
The volume is all the way up. Sorry, I can't turn it up anymore. It's just the video feed is really low.
Absolutely everything about this. But the $3.4 billion that we raised, I think, goes a long way to cushioning the firm from future market volatility.
After you boned everybody?
Similar black swan events. And I believe that even throughout this process, we improved our risk management processes and strengthened them so that the experience customers had on Friday that week was much improved from Thursday.
Thank you.
We'll continue to learn and improve upon this.
Ms. Wagner, you're recognized for.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I'd like to welcome our witnesses for testifying today to discuss the late January market volatility that took place, along with what I hope is a broader discussion on market functions and their effect on everyday investors. Since I was very first elected, I have advocated for America's Main Street investors and worked tirelessly to ensure that all Americans, especially those low and middle income savers, are given the investment choice access and affordability that they deserve. Retail investors are the strength of our stock market, and I have fought throughout my career for their best interests in the financial markets, and this hearing today is no different. The advances in financial technology that we've witnessed in the last decade have improved the way that
GME would have gone
Americans
past
and our
1,000 without those
businesses perform
restrictions.
financial activities. In just the past year, we have seen retail investors' market participation more than double. And I think this is great. I believe in the wisdom of the retail investor, and I will say I believe in the First Amendment too. This increase is attributed to Robinhood and other trading brokerages who are lowering account minimums, permitting fractional share trading, and implementing zero commission trading. It's critical that Congress focus on reducing barriers to market participation, which is rarely want to do, let me sadly say, and allowing Main Street Americans access to the financial instruments that can create long-term investment savings. All of these changes have given millions of Americans the ability to invest better for their families and their future. My hope is that the majority does not use this hearing as an excuse to once again add new federal regulatory burdens to an industry that is already heavily regulated and that will prevent people from participating in our capital markets. Letting existing regulations work is key, not burdening everyday investors with new and more costly barriers to entry. Mr. Tanev, it appears at the time your company did not have enough money to meet the collateral requirements for that level of trading by your customers. In your view, were collateral requirements from the DTCC unreasonably high? Was the amount of trading on your platform unforeseeable? Or was your company undercapitalized given its risk profile?
Long-winded answer coming up in 3, 2, 1.
So this event was a 5 Sigma event, which is a 1 in 3.5 million event. To put that in context, there have only been tens of thousands of stock market days in the history of the U.S. stock market. So 1 in 3.5
What's that
million
noise in the
event
background?
basically is unmodelable. That said, we can learn from it, and in this particular case,
like
our
a
risk management
dog eating the
processes
microphone.
worked appropriately to keep us in compliance with all of our deposit requirements and collateral requirements.
Well, Mr. Tev, I realize that you are doing a full review of your practices and such. I encourage you to do that, and certainly communication with your investors is going to be key to that because you didn't communicate with them early on. Let me just say, as a ranking member on the Diversity and Inclusion Subcommittee, I am delighted to be speaking with our witness, Ms. Jennifer Schulp. Ranking Member McHenry and I have spent countless hours stressing the importance of having qualified women in finance. So I'm pleased to have you here today to lend your expertise. Ms. Schulp, we now know that it was the daily collateral demands set by the National Security Clearing Corporation that were the reason Robinhood had to temporarily restrict trading. Can you briefly explain the purpose of these capital requirements and their overall relationship to ensuring our markets function in an orderly manner? And did you see any broad failures of market function during these events, ma'am?
Sure, thank you. Thank you for the compliment. The NSCC's collateral requirements here serve the function to provide security for the stock.
God, she's getting a bad echo.
So while an investor thinks that what has happened is they bought a stock on the day that they make a trade, it really takes 2 days for the settlement process to clear. During that time, the brokerage firm, the DTCC,
she needs to turn her audio down on her TV.
Stock not actually clearing, and the collateral requirements are in place in order to mitigate the risk that the brokerage firm will not be able to.
What is even happening? I can't hear a damn thing she's saying.
Promises to sell or buy. I didn't see any broad-scale failure here. The DTCC's collateral requirement was large, but understandable. And I think things functioned largely correctly.
My time has expired. I thank you all for your testimony, and I yield back, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you very
I feel like they ask
much.
questions, but they don't really care about the answers.
Point of order. I just like, yeah, Perlmutter, just to remind people to, when they're not speaking, to mute themselves, because there's a lot of feedback when the question is asked and the mic stays open and the people are answering the question. Just remind everybody to mute when you're not speaking, that's all.
Thank you very much. You heard Mr. Perlmutter. I would hope that every member would certainly do that. Mr. Sherman, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. You've come to expect things on the internet to be free. When you're not paying for it, it's not free. You're the product, someone else is the customer. When you go onto Facebook and it's free, you're the product being sold.
This guy is trying to act like he knows something that people don't know right now. He's so proud of himself.
So we now have a system where we're telling investors that it's free to invest to buy and sell stock.
Yeah, exactly, Ring Fit.
To pay the folks involved in Wall Street for buying and selling stock. One is a commission, and you know what it is. And so we discourage investors a little bit from buying and selling stock because they have to pay a commission and they know they're paying a commission. The other way to do it is to give them a worse execution. So whenever there's say a stock being purchased and sold, the market maker, perhaps Citadel, might be willing to sell the stock for $10.05, but will buy it for only $10.
Yeah, they will.
Is 5 cents. And so the issue is whether Robinhood and other people who are being told you get it for free are really getting it for free. Mr. Griffin, you're a market maker. You pay some brokers for order flow. You don't pay others for order flow. So when you pay for order flow, you're not making as much on the transaction. You have to pay some of that back to the broker. That's hidden the amount of that is hidden from the customer. The fact that it exists has perhaps recently been disclosed. SEC rules require that people get the best execution, but I've recently learned that there's best execution and enhanced pricing. So if you get an order from Fidelity and you get an order from Robinhood and you're paying for the Robinhood order flow,
hold, Kev, hold.
Is the Robinhood customer getting as good a price as the Fidelity customer? Mr. Griffin.
So, Congressman, I believe that's an excellent question. The execution quality that we can provide as measured in terms of price improvement is heavily related or correlated to the size of the order that we receive. So if I were to speculate,
don't tell me that that there are other factors involved and take us down another road. I'm asking you a clear question. Assuming same size of order, one comes in from Robinhood, one comes in from Fidelity. Is it not true that one is going to get a enhanced best execution, and the other one is just going to get best execution?
So as I was trying to explain, because the Robinhood order comes from a community of traders who tend to trade in smaller size.
That isn't my question, sir. You're evading my question by making up other questions. Let me repeat. 2 identical orders come in. Same stock, same quantity. One's from Robinhood, one's from Fidelity.
He's getting pissed.
The quality of the execution varies by the channel of the order. This is a commonly understood phenomenon in economics, that channels matter. So, for example, when you go get a mortgage from JP Morgan to their clientele has a different rate of interest than a mortgage.
Okay, reclaiming my time, sir. Who gets the better deal? Well, one that comes from a broker who is being paid for order flow, and one not. Can you testify that on balance, there is no difference, assuming the same size of the order?
So, as I said earlier, size of the order is only one factor.
You are doing a
You-
great job of wasting my time.
Yeah, you're not answering the question.
You should run for the Senate. Everyone else I've talked to in this industry says when you pay
That was
for
great.
order flow, you get a when your broker is being paid for order flow, you get a worse execution. Otherwise, you're in a peculiar circumstance where you're making more money on a Fidelity transaction than a Robinhood transaction, which would be an absurd business practice.
The gentleman's time has expired. Mr. Lucas, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, for holding this hearing, and thank you to the witnesses for agreeing to testify. It's been reported that approximately 20% of market volume is now attributable to retail customers, which I think is just fascinating considering that's up from 10% in 2019. And that's an overwhelmingly positive development, allowing for more market liquidity, more stability, additional avenues for households to grow their wealth. And it's important to increase market access for retail customers. And I don't want to disrupt that if we possibly can. So I'd like to turn with my first question to Mr. Tennant. Let's talk about the attention that this pay for order flow has received. You explained in your testimony Robinhood's relationship with market makers is important for Robinhood's ability to offer commission-free trading. So expand, if you would, on how that process benefits the everyday investor. Just expand in general on that, if you would.
What a
Congressman, I'd be happy to. Thanks for
terrible
giving me
question.
An opportunity. So, as I mentioned in my written testimony,
He literally just said, "Hey, have the floor to make yourself look good." Like, what kind of question is that?
The industry standard model to be commission-free. Most brokers collected a commission on top of the payment for order flow on every transaction.
What does this
now, Robinhood
accomplish?
Routes to market makers, including Citadel Execution Services.
Put the other guy
We've
back
got
on.
7 in total across equities and options, and we route without consideration for payment for order flow. All payment for order flow arrangements are uniform across the market makers, and our system routes orders based on who provides the best execution quality for our customers. So the reason Citadel gets a relatively high percentage of our customer order flow is because they provide superior execution quality for our customers. And that's first and foremost
pay for
the most
it.
important consideration that we look for. How are our customers getting the best execution quality? If another market maker were to improve upon the execution
it's a
quality
monopoly.
that Citadel Execution Services provides,
they run the
any
world.
subset of orders, our system is set up to automatically route more traffic to that market maker.
Continuing down this line, because clearly this is one of the things that my colleagues and the public has a very strong interest in. And having lived through Dodd-Frank before, I see where sometimes major things can occur. I want to turn to Mr. Griffin. Could you also elaborate on how payment for order flow provides, whether it's the best price?
This guy's in on it with Vlad and Citadel. He's a plant. Like, you can tell he's on their side. He's just asking generic, like, questions to explain yourselves on what you do.
The CEO of Robinhood just set forth clearly the orders that are
This is terrible. This is such a waste of time right now.
Today are allocated principally on the basis of price improvement. We have fought for 15 years to make that the basis by how which orders are allocated, because we strongly believe that Citadel is able to provide a better execution for retail orders in the long run. We make a huge investment in our team and our technology to do so. How is it that we are able to provide better execution quality than exchanges? Because exchanges are limited in their ability to do business by regulatory mandate. Exchanges by law have a minimum 1 cent wide market, which for low price securities means that they are less competitive than they otherwise could be. We're able
So are you here and what are you doing?
What?
Excuse me?
That wasn't either one of us. Continue, Mr. Griffin.
So
we're able so random. What are you here and what are you doing?
And we're able to give them a better price, and we're able to.
He's like, Sorry?
payments or order flow to firms like Robinhood that allow them to have lower or today
Yeah, exactly,
no
Ring Fit.
commission. And of particular note, we're able to help Robinhood and other brokers pay exchange fees to the exchanges at the time of execution. This has been very important to the democratization of finance. It has allowed the American retail investor to have the lowest execution costs they've ever had in the history of the U.S. financial market.
In the Dodd-Frank process that the chairman and I went through a decade ago plus, there was much discussion about margin requirements. Give us just a discussion for an instant about when you discovered you had a $3 billion additional margin call.
So, thank you, Congressman. I believe the full play-by-play of that situation was described in detail in my written testimony. Just to clarify, though, this decision had nothing to do with margin.
Are they like building an office next to Vlad? Like there's like hammering and stuff going on next
Mr.
to him.
Weeks, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for this hearing, and Mr. Ranking Member. Let me ask a question to Mr. Taneve. I've been burnt once or twice in the market, and but particularly since I've been a member of Congress, one of the things that I recall greatly was the financial crises in 2008. And it is, we thought that opening the market up, that people had adjustable rate mortgages, etc., that were able to get into the market, people who may not have been before, but a lot of disclosure had not happened. So they didn't look, nor was there was no documents to look at what their incomes were or anything of that nature. So when those adjustable rates happened, many individuals lost their homes. Many people who bought those mortgages or who initially agreed to those mortgages sold them immediately because they did know that the people would not be able to afford them and they would default shortly thereafter. Now, so I understand your model of trying to get more people, more democratization, but that means that there's now greater responsibility of ensuring that their customers have all of the information they need to assess riskier trades. Now, for me, the information that has to be digestible and accessible. Now, one of the problems I have, for example, you're allowing up to $1,000 to buy stocks on margin, and borrowing on margin is risky. So,
what the hell does this have to do with GameStop? Like, now they're trying to shift policy. Like, this is not
the sophisticated investors and allowing them to buy these risky.
This has nothing to do with why they're being called here.
Thank you, Congressman, for the opportunity to address that. Let me set the stage a little bit by saying that about 2% of our customers borrow on margin. About 13% on a monthly basis perform an options transaction, and a much smaller number, around 3%, perform a multi-leg options transaction. So the vast majority of our customers are engaging in buy and hold activities and long-term investing on our platform. Now, to clarify your point on the $1,000 margin, that's actually something that we refer to as Robinhood Instant, and it's provided as a courtesy. When a customer initiates a deposit, we allow them access to up to $1,000.
That dude just had like a really long-winded introduction just to ask a generic question like this. This is
as
nothing.
A courtesy, they might provide access to those funds or a portion of them before the check clears.
Thanks, Lenny.
As for margin specifically, borrowing money on margin, the rules are very ironclad industry-wide. Obviously, Robinhood Securities conforms to all of the applicable rules, and Robinhood's product is in many ways more restrictive than that of our competitors, because in order to even qualify for borrowing on margin, you have to be a Robinhood Gold customer, which involves paying $5 a month for the service.
So I think that you have, you say that everything is restrictive, but when you are going after the less sophisticated investment, it's more than that. There's a greater responsibility that you have because they have, they could lose, and when they lose, it could make a determination of whether or not they can pay their mortgage or their rent or not. And they can be taken advantage of. Oftentimes you find in the financial industry, it is those that have the least that are really taken advantage of. So the big guys, you know, it becomes a reverse Robinhood situation, which really concerns me. Let me get to this real quick.
I don't think this guy even knows what he's asking right now.
Said in regards to liquidity, and you said that you didn't borrow the money and because you needed it at the time, but that then you later in a question you asked that you raised the additional money because I want to know how you spent the money for future situations, which means to me that you did have a liquidity problem, or you anticipated possibly having a liquidity problem, or would have one in future transactions. Could you? What's the deal there?
What's the deal with that?
I appreciate that question. I stand by what I said. Robinhood
he does have a
able
nice tie.
to meet our deposit requirements. We were in compliance with firm net capital obligations throughout the period, and that additional capital, the $3.4 billion, wasn't to service our requirements. It was entirely to prepare for a future, even greater black swan event,
that dude,
to unrestrict.
That dude spent his whole time just talking. He didn't even ask questions.
On the trading,
that was useless.
Of these securities.
A waste of time.
The gentleman's time has expired. Mr. Huizenga, you're next with 5 minutes.
Thanks, Madam.
I hope this guy's better.
And, this would have been a little nicer 10 minutes ago when I was supposed to go, but I'm going to go back to Mr. Griffin and the Capital Markets Subcommittee. Ranking member, I think, was filibustering himself, and I just wanted to make sure, Mr. Griffin, you had that opportunity to feel comfortable with the explanation.
Oh man, this guy's bought and sold by Citadel.
And what was attempted apparently
God.
to try to be asked.
Talk about a guy that's trying to groom a billionaire here.
To emphasize that we have vigorously advocated for execution quality to be one of the dominant decision-making factors in the routing of order flow in the United States. This has saved retail investors billions of dollars over the year, in contrast to the executions that they would receive through other execution strategies.
Okay.
With respect to payment for order flow, we simply play by the rules of the road. Payment for order flow has been expressly approved by the SEC. It is
that guy basically just said, Mr. Kenneth Griffin, I'm so sorry about how that other congressman treated you. Let me be nice to you, and maybe you can remember me in the future, Mr. Super Rich Billionaire guy.
An important source of innovation in the industry. As the CEO of Robinhood has testified, they drove the industry towards $0 commissions. This has been a big win for American investors.
Get to
this has been a big win.
Cato Institute.
He does look like Sean Austin.
And I know that there was Greenwich Associates had a study, and others are out there. Do you concur that this has been good for consumers in the most part?
You're literally just asking a question he just answered.
There's still ongoing studies, but I do think that payment for order flow and the price improvements have largely been good for improvements for customers. And I agree with Mr. Griffin that this has helped drive innovation in the industry. I think disclosure can always be better, and I think people should understand that their broker still needs to make money even if they're providing a zero commission trading service.
Yeah, okay. All right, I've got about 3 minutes left. I was going to start actually with this and ask each one of you why you thought you were here today. But I'm going to dispense with that because it's going to take too much time, and I'll provide the answer. Political theater, for the most part. That's what this hearing is today. I mean, we're on the business channels right now and on C-SPAN. I think if you see a few of my colleagues playing to the cameras, but we need to have some of these fundamental and important questions answered at the end of the day. And one of the assertions that you've heard already today is that investing is, quote, casino gambling. It's using monopoly funny money. I guess I want to know, is individual retail participation in the marketplace gambling, casino gambling, or using funny money? Mr. Gill, why don't we just start with you? Very quickly.
He's probably muted.
I don't hear him. Mr. Huffman, let's move to you.
No, I believe that investing is investing.
Okay. Mr. Griffin?
I believe the vast majority of retail participation are people saving to meet their dreams.
All right, Mr. Tanev?
Congressman, thank you. As I mentioned in my opening statement, Robinhood customers have essentially made over $35
This
billion
guy he doesn't know how to answer a question.
Realized gains.
He just talks in circles. Talking in circles, Vlad.
It's thing for them, correct?
Absolutely, it's investing and it's building.
Yeah, ring fit, exactly. This is stupid.
Yes, of course. I do. I believe it's an opportunity for investors to participate in the market just as institutionals participate.
Okay, so actually, the business channels had a good question from one of the Reddit readers, which is, so you recommended GameStop before. Would you buy their stock now at roughly 45? It started at 48 earlier today. You were talking about buying it and being happy when it hit cross 20. So are you buying that stock today?
Well, let me just say that investing can be risky, and my particular approach to investing is rather aggressive and may not be suitable for anyone else. But for me personally, yes.
Yeah!
So, yes or no, are you buying the stock?
He just said yes.
Personally, yes, I do find it's an attractive investment at this price point.
Quick question. Did you invest in GameStop because you were not aware of the payment for order flow?
What?
That's one of the accusations. Bought into this because they don't know that.
What?
Sorry, could you repeat that question?
Did you buy GameStop because you were not aware of the payment for order flow?
My investment in GameStop was based on the fundamentals.
Okay. I think that answers it. I believe my time has expired.
Ms. Velasquez, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Mr. Kenneth, Robinhood seems to have perfected the gamification of trading, providing the user with the perception that investing through the Robinhood app offers recreational gain, playing with little or no downside.
This guy's mic is so loud.
Many of us understand that investing is not a game and carries significant risk. How does Robinhood balance disclosures around the potential downside risk of investing, including the risk of substantial loss and the more enticing claims of profitability and the ease of trading?
Congresswoman, I appreciate that question. Giving people what they want in a responsible way is what Robinhood is about. We don't consider that gamification. We know that investing is serious, and we're investing in all of the educational tools and customer support to help people on their investing journey. What we see is most of our customers are buy and hold. A very small percentage are trading options, about 13%.
This lady has no idea what she's even doing here. The question she just asked is not even
most people
applicable to anything.
To build up portfolios.
The gamification of stocks.
Can you answer my question?
What are you even asking, lady?
Do you balance disclosures around the potential?
It's a free market. People can buy what they want. What? Why are you asking Vlad this?
So we make lots of disclosures, Congresswoman. We also we're also a self-directed brokerage, so that means we don't provide advice and we don't make recommendations for what customers should or should not invest in.
Thank you.
So you don't think that as a result of the
Yes, you can. It's like clear as day. She's just. This is FaceTime for her. She's going to use this to run her campaign. Be like, oh, I was part of the GameStop thing. It's like she has no idea what she's doing.
Amateur investors were unaware of the situation they currently find themselves in.
What?
Well, I want to mention again, as in my opening statement, Robinhood customers have earned more than $35 billion in unrealized and realized gains on top of what they've deposited. So I think this shows us that product is working for customers and
I
option is
mean,
working.
like, what is the
Okay,
point of this
thank
right
you.
now?
Mr. Hawking, over the course of my time in Congress, I have been concerned and spoken out about the dangers of short selling. While I understand that short selling can be used for legitimate purposes, too often I have seen abuse and it ends up harming ordinary workers and families. I first saw it against the people of Puerto Rico, and now we are seeing it here against GameStop. Large investors, including hedge funds like yours, have to disclose
Right.
their
That's the
long
real question,
positions
Pess.
when they own 5% or more of the company's shares.
This is
But
such a waste.
such disclosure is required for short positions. As we consider reforms, is this type of disclosure for short positions something you will support? Mr. Plotkin?
Yeah, Congresswoman, thank you very much for the question. I think it's a really good question. Whatever regulation is put forth in the marketplace, we will obviously, operate within those rules. It's certainly something I'd be happy to follow up with the
But
committee.
what about my question about short selling?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. It's not really for me to decide, but if those are the rules, I'll certainly abide by them.
Okay, well.
That answer means he knows they're not going to do anything.
I'm glad to hear that answer. Public reports credit you with helping to start the GameStop craze by encouraging other amateur investors.
Exactly,
to bet against the short
SPF.
positions that Mr. Plotkin and others took. But the stock has now fallen from its high, and many amateur investors have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. It is my understanding that you are a registered broker. Is that correct?
Time's up.
The gentleman's time has expired.
Thank
Thank
God.
you.
That
Are
was
you back?
that was
Thank you,
painful.
and I appreciate all of the members who are participating today. This is not political theater at all.
This is 100%
serious oversight responsibility.
100%
and
political
reminded
theater.
not to impugn the motive of other members. Thank you, Mr. Lukemeyer. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And my first question will go to Mr. Gill.
Yeah, ring fit. I noticed that. I was
Mr.
ignoring
Gill,
it.
I guess the question is, you're a very serious investor, somebody who does his homework, invest in the market, your own personal funds. And so I guess the question would be, here today we're discussing the actions around Robinhood, all the transactions that took place. I guess, do you think we need more legislation as a result of what happened here, or did the system actually work? And let me just make a couple comments on that part. From the standpoint that did it work, was it self-correcting? Did the fact that somebody like yourself was able to invest and maybe take advantage of the over-shorting positions by the hedge fund guys who were trying to really drive down the price of the stock for other reasons, whatever, or did it point out perhaps that we had some companies, perhaps like Robinhood, I would argue that was undercapitalized or under-reserved? Or maybe there was over-aggressive other types of investing that was taking place. The algorithms that were there, the different business models, they didn't work because you outsmarted the system, so to speak. Would you like to comment on that, on that sort of questions and how I formatted it?
Good.
Thank you for the question, Congressman. I would say my expertise is in analyzing the business, the fundamentals of the business, not so much on the inner workings of the market. I'm not so sure about legislation per se. What I would say is that increased transparency could help.
God, could I love this guy any more than I already
how
do?
those types of things work. I feel as though it would be quite beneficial to retail investors.
Nailed
Thank you for
it.
that. I know
Nailed
that,
it.
Mr. Tevin, Robinhood is an interesting name. As I recall, the old story is take from the rich, give to the poor. And I assume what you're doing is allowing the poor to compete with the rich, which is interesting. You made the comment in your testimony, Mr. Tevin, about settling this in real time. We have the electronic ability to do this. I think that would probably help the situation that occurred here. But what other problems occur when you do this in real time? What other things would we have to look at? What other unintended consequences would there be if you did something like that?
Thank you, Congressman, for the question. I believe that right now, certain market participants rely on next day settlement to to be able to take advantage of intraday netting and run up larger one-sided positions in certain stocks with the knowledge that they can close those positions or reduce them by the time settlement happens. And I understand that would be a limitation to the trading activities of some of these institutions. So that's certainly one area to consider. The other is around securities lending. We'd have to make changes to how securities lending works. I don't think any of these are insurmountable challenges, and I'd be happy, as I mentioned earlier, to deploy our intellectual capital and our team's engineering resources to help solve these problems very quickly.
Thank you for that. Mr. Plotka and Mr. Griffin, the question is for both of you here. Whenever you're short selling, I understand that GameStop stock was short sold 140%. And Mr. Plotkin, you made the comment in your testimony a minute ago that you were not trying to manipulate stock. Yet, if you're short selling a stock 140%, for me on the outside looking in, it looks like that's exactly what you're doing. Explain to me why that's not manipulating the stock.
Thank you, Congressman. For us, I can't speak to other people that were shorted. Anytime we short a stock, we locate a borrow. Our systems actually force us to find the borrower, so we always, short stocks within the context of all the rules.
Mr. Griffin, would you like to comment on that? You guys are both market makers and brokers and hedge fund guys. I mean, you do all of it. Why is this not considered manipulating a stock whenever you can short sell at 140%? Don't you think there should be a limit on something like that?
So I believe that the short interest in GameStop was exceptional, and I'm not sure it's worth us delving into legislative corrections for a very unique situation in terms of the extreme side of short interest. I will say.
Sorry, I had to refill my water, but I was listening to that. It was a good question.
In fact, every bank, every hedge fund does have to requirement to borrow
over 140% shorted.
Day in and day out business.
But they weren't trying to manipulate it. Right.
Largely curtailed by SEC mandate years ago.
The time has expired. Mr. Scott, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Lady Waters, and let me just say,
what's up, Reggie?
That the people of this country appreciate you for pulling this financial services hearing together, because this is a threat to the future of our financial system, and we got to get to the bottom. Let me start with you, Mr. Tenney. Let's go through this. The sequence of events that led to the extreme rise in value of GameStop stock and the subsequent market volatility originated through a Reddit discussion. What? And then that was fueled through social media. And as the story gained traction, tweets by well-known figures with the influence to move markets sent the stock value even higher and higher. So, let me start with you, Mr. Tenney. What policies does Robinhood have in place to monitor what happened on social media and how it drives the use of your trading platforms?
How could he answer that question?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. Currently, Robinhood does not perform any sort of moderation of social media.
Does this guy not know how the internet works?
The data
does he think Robinhood is connected to Reddit?
Have at their disposal to tie
what kind of question was that?
To identities. We do, however, within Robinhood Securities, conform to all regulatory requirements around monitoring and trade surveillance and all things of that nature.
Well, Mr. Kenner, don't you see something is going terribly wrong here?
Exactly, Pest.
What do you do to monitor the trade?
I don't know anything about this, Vlad. Can you tell me how to fix it?
In the case of GameStop, they are singled out and moved on social media.
It was moved because it was a short squeeze.
I appreciate the question. So our priority throughout the exceptional market conditions
He probably is,
January
Captain Retro.
and early February was to maintain the uptime and performance of our platform and make sure that we're available to customers.
Let me try to get to a point here. Do you, Robinhood, do you have any policies in place
Robinhood,
to ensure that investors are making trades based on legitimate
exactly, Rigfit. This
financial information?
This guy's asking the wrong questions to the wrong guy right now.
This social media.
This is
the
stupid.
Design of trading platforms or any other superfluous information. Do you have anything, any guardrail?
Absolutely. Congressman, we provide educational resources to our customers, including our redesigned Robinhood Learn portal, which is not just available to Robinhood customers, but to the general public, and had over 3.2 million people visiting in 2020.
But don't we need...
I should have been a politician.
I mean, you're at the center.
How are these people in charge of anything? My goodness.
Don't you see and agree that something very wrong happened here? And that you're at the center of it? And we are...
You can tell he has no idea what's happening based off the questions he's asking.
Our wonderful, precious financial system. We need it from you.
Please.
What about you, Mr. Hoffman?
Please.
Do you have anything?
I think he is drunk. Seriously.
What steps is your company taking to guard against this? Anything at all?
Congressman, we
Thanks,
spend
Lenny.
a lot of time at Reddit ensuring the authenticity of our platform. So we've got a large team dedicated to this exact task. Everything on Reddit, all of the content is created by users, voted on by users, and ranked by users, and we make sure that that is authentic and as unmanipulated as possible. And in this specific case, we did not see any signs of manipulation.
For real, Kevin. For real. It's not just Georgia, though. It's a lot of the country.
10 seconds left, but this episode exposes a serious threat to our financial system when tweets, social media posts,
Can you bang the gavel? Get this guy off here.
Than material, legitimate information. The risk is enormous.
Good point. Good point, Ring Fit.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Tigers, you now have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate you calling this hearing. The American financial markets, I believe,
I'll turn this guy up. He's super low.
still imperfect. I would have liked to see this committee have a meaningful discussion about capital requirements and the T+2 clearing rules that may have contributed to some of Robinhood's customers not being able to purchase stock, including GameStop, for a period of time. But because the majority didn't include the SEC, the Depository Trust Clearing Corporation, or the National Securities Clearing Corporation to testify, we're left with what we have. That's because I believe the majority is attempting to use this hearing to drive a narrative about the U.S. capital markets being rigged. But I do have several questions. Mr. Tanev, you decided to stop allowing your users to buy GameStop and other stocks as a result of capital requirements on Robinhood securities.
Yeah, Lenny, if you're a hedge fund, you're allowed to do whatever you want.
That's correct, yes. Deposit requirements with our clearing houses.
And you know, those got resolved, but for a period of time, some of your users could only sell and not buy, and that could have contributed to the stock actually going, you know, not going up as fast because some of your users
Going down. You can say contribute to going down.
Possible that could have happened.
I shouldn't speculate on what could have happened.
If there are more sellers than buyers, does the stock price go down or up?
Well, to be clear, Robinhood Congressman, is a minority of trading activity in.
He's asking you a question.
I understand, but if your buyers can only sell and not buy, then it clearly keeps you from putting upward pressure on the stock price. Is that correct?
On Thursday, customers.
Holy crap, Vlad! Yes,
so
just
there
say
was
yes.
No ability to buy. That's correct.
Right. So.
Yeah, Kev, that too.
You said earlier. By the way, I know some people have attacked your arbitration agreements, but I want you to be clear. If your users were harmed as a result of these actions, they can recover through arbitration. Is that correct? Yes or no?
Yes, that's correct. And our arbitration is FINRA supervised and overseen, and we do believe arbitration gives customers a fair and speedier resolution to their claims.
Thank you. Does your user agreement and your arbitration allow for group arbitration or only individual arbitration?
Let me get back to you on that.
If a group was treated
let me get back to you on that.
Affected or lost upside or lost money, can they do it as a group, or is it only individual in your arbitration agreement?
Well, Congressman, I'm sure you're familiar of the number of class action lawsuits held against Robinhood.
And I'm not asking about a class action lawsuit. I'm asking in your arbitration system, can a group of people come together, or is it individual? And this is not a trick question. I'm not a fan of trial lawyers. I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Congressman. I think the best thing I can do is get back to you after making sure that we.
You literally couldn't say yes to him saying allowing only selling is downward pressure.
Seller, yes or no?
We run a long-short portfolio. The majority of our investments are long investments, but we also have short investments to hedge out market risk.
Majority meaning 51%.
Has Melvin Capital ever engaged in short selling of the stock Tesla?
We have been short Tesla in the past. That's correct.
Mr. Plotkin, also, this is a longer question. Did you see the tweet from Tesla CEO Elon Musk about GameStop stock?
I did see that after market hours on a Tuesday.
Do you believe that Mr. Musk's tweet had any significant effect of driving the rise in GameStop stock?
I don't want to speculate on what the actions of his tweet were. The stock did rise after hours.
And do you believe that tweet was targeting you because you had shorted Tesla stock in the past?
We had a very small short position years ago in Tesla. That would be pure speculation as to his motives of putting that tweet out.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, AKA, you reap what you sow.
On the regulatory requirements, do you believe that the SEC and the Depository Trust Clearing Corporation should modify any of their rules as a result of what happened to your users because of capital requirements?
I do believe.
The gentleman's time has expired, and the SEC is not here today because they're in transition with a temporary chair, awaiting the confirmation of the person who's been appointed by the President of the United States.
So the
This is a
SEC...
serious hearing. Members are reminded not to impugn the motives of others.
The SEC has been absent because there's no one in charge there right now. Wow, that's what's going on.
There is a reason.
Why does he have a mask on? He's alone in an office.
A market maker for properly trading its own account.
Does he think he can get it through the virtual computer?
Note that I said improperly trading. I don't want to go through the scenario of there being a time for proper trading ahead of accounts. I'd like for you to tell us what that reason is, please.
Well, trading ahead of customer accounts is illegal, and it does not.
I understand that it's illegal.
Thanks for the sub up north.
Included unrefined, but I have to ask this question quickly. What can happen that can benefit the market maker? How can that be monetized such that the market maker profits greatly from doing it?
Right. If a market maker trades improperly ahead of the own customer accounts, he can get a better price and can move the market in the process depending on how big the trade is, thus hurting the customer.
Yes, and if this trade is huge, and you can see that this trade that the client has is huge and will have an impact on the market. Um, how does that benefit the market maker to trade ahead of the client?
But the market maker can get a better price for himself before the price changes by the client's trade. He can also engage in self-dealing that way as well.
So does it benefit a huge market maker to have a great deal with, let's say, a Robinhood because of the flow that will be coming through
It's a
that
good
the
question.
market maker can take advantage of?
And I like how he's asking
I
her.
don't think that they're necessarily congruent situations. When you're trading ahead of a customer order, which is something that is illegal and that the SEC does monitor for, it's very different from having knowledge as to the way that the market might be moving based on.
I understand, but I want to talk about the circumstance where it's improper, not where it's proper. Remember, we started with improper trading. Here's my point. Let me go to it quickly. The market maker Citadel traded over-the-counter stocks for its own accounts in 2012, from 2012 to 2014, while simultaneously delaying client orders for the same shares. And it was fine for this. Citadel.
Any coincidence that they bailed out Melvin Capital now?
2012, 2014, Citadel faced $800,000 in penalties. 2017,
pennies to them.
22.6 million.
They make that in 10 minutes.
18, 3.5 million.
They make that in 30 minutes.
2020, 97 million. And another 2020 of 700,000. This seems like a lot of money. It is for me, more than $124 million. But over the same period of time, Citadel had revenues generated in the amount of $13.2 billion
with a B.
It seems to me that the punishment
does not match the crime
for these improper trades and improper actions, because it wasn't just trading. Citadel also did some other things that were not proper. They misled clients. Seems that the punishment is so small given the amount of revenue generated over the same period of time. It seems that Citadel has at least an opportunity to build into its cost of doing business paying penalties. And that concerns me. It concerns me that the punishment doesn't seem to deter
Capital
Citadel.
B. That's what they officially reported. Who knows what they really made?
Of circumstances wherein persons who are not in the market, they do things that are much less harmful, and they can possibly go to jail. So the question that I have is this.
Funny how that works.
What kinds of systems do we have in place, and it's back to you again, ma'am, to prevent the very things that I have called to the attention of my colleagues?
Well, as a former enforcement attorney at FINRA, I can say that regulators have the same concern with fines and other punishments becoming just a cost of doing business. And it's one of the things that are considered along with the regulations around what can be punished.
Good question, but the guy took too long to get it out.
May I, for the record,
has expired. Mr. Green, as you know, we're going to have a series of hearings, and our next panel will include a whole bevy of experts also on some of these issues. With that, Mr. Barr,
may I say something in the record, please? I have additional questions.
Without objection, you may enter into the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Barr, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Griffin, I want to revisit this issue of payment for order flow. Payment for order flow has been around for decades, correct?
So I know it's been around for at least 1 or 2 decades. I can't answer before that period of time.
And it's a recognized and approved practice by the SEC, correct?
Yes, it is.
And payment for order flow is set by the brokerage firm, not the wholesaler, right?
that it is ultimately a negotiated number, but it is a number that is set by the brokerage firm and not by us as the market maker.
Well, as a market maker that provides execution services to retail brokers, you are required to meet best execution requirements. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And in other words, market makers are required to provide the same or better pricing than the exchanges, correct?
That is correct.
And how can market makers offer that better pricing to Mr. Sherman's line of questions?
So there are a number of drivers that permit us to offer better pricing than what is available on
Roundabout answer, go.
The first is that exchanges have legally mandated minimum tick sizes of a penny. So if you look at a stock like AMC, it trades $5 bid, 501 offered. If the exchange could trade with a half cent increment, it would probably trade $5.005 bid, 501 offered, or vice versa. But the exchanges are limited to a 1 cent minimum tick size. And we have been clear on the record in prior testimony that exchanges should be permitted to have a smaller and more competitive tick size. That's fact number one.
Okay.
Number two is that the average retail order is much smaller in totality than the average order that goes onto an exchange.
Yeah.
Because this order is smaller, and I'll share a number with you, the typical Robinhood order is ballpark about $2,000 in size. Because it's a small order, the amount of risk that we need to assume in managing that order is relatively small as compared to an order that we have to manage from our on-exchange trading. And as I'm sure you're well aware, we are the largest trader of stocks on exchanges in the United States.
So let me move to Mr. Tenev really quickly on that point. What impact might greater restrictions on the payment for order flow model have on your ability to offer zero commission trades?
We do believe, Congressman, that that's an important question, and payment for order flow helps cover the costs of running our business and offer commission-free trading to customers. When we started, people didn't even think that there was enough margin left to make this business work, but we've been fortunate to make it work
with back alley deals with the Illuminati.
Talking about why Robinhood restricted trades, I think your explanation about margin requirements charged by your clearinghouse makes sense. Is your clearinghouse supervised by the Fed and the SEC?
I believe in that.
Are the margin requirements charged by your clearinghouse in turn approved by federal regulators?
Yes.
And did federal regulators approve the value risk charge that was imposed on Robinhood?
I believe, Congressman, the value at risk charge is outlined in general terms in Dodd-Frank, but I'm not sure who approved the specific implementation of that formula.
So if anyone has a problem with your decision to halt trades, it's fair to say that their frustration should be directed toward federal regulation.
Congressman, I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus and direct frustration anywhere. All I can say is Robinhood Securities played this by the books and played it basically the only way that we could remain in compliance with our deposit requirements.
Mr. Plotkin, I appreciate your testimony that Melvin always follows laws governing shorting stock, but Melvin lost $6 billion in 20 trading days. Let me ask you about your risk management. Did your short positions exceed float?
No, they did not.
Well, shorting has an important role to play in our markets, allowing for legitimate hedging and price discovery. But we are interested in naked shorting, and so we would hope that you would clarify that and how it is that you make sure that you're first locating the borrow.
It's expired. Mr. Cleaver, you're recognized.
Oh, Gabe, you just got off easy there.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I too would like to thank you for this hearing. it's a question that a lot of people are asking, probably many of us as we, go through our districts. But let me start with you, Mr. To me, I'm just curious if you could give it to me in a short period of time. How did you come up with your name for your company?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question, Congressman. Robinhood stands for lowering the barrier to entry and democratizing finance for all. So the idea is the same tools that institutions and wealthier high net worth individuals have had for a long time. Should be available to the people regardless of their net worth or how much money they have.
Okay, I appreciate that answer. Because it's something I would also embrace. However, I have a 23-year-old on the other side of the house who I love dearly, but he has no training, no income, no qualifications. How in the world could he get like $1 million worth of leverage?
Thank you, Congressman. So the leverage that we provide to our customers, which less than 3% of our customers actively use, is regulated strictly by requirements. So the only way to get that amount of leverage in a margin account through borrowing is to deposit a similarly sized amount of capital.
But, or by mistake.
Is it still frozen?
Congressman, I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Well, I mean, there's a record of a young man getting $1 million worth of leverage. He was only 20 years old. So I'm just saying, if that's not a policy, that was an error.
Congressman, I appreciate the opportunity to address that really important point. You're referring to Mr. Kearns.
I am.
Let me see what I can do.
Unfortunately passed last year.
Yes.
First of all,
still
I'm
frozen?
sorry to
Okay,
the
hold on a
family of
second.
Mr.
Let me see what I can do
Kearns
here.
for your loss. The passing of Mr. Kearns was deeply troubling to me and to the entire
Okay,
company.
hold on a second.
And we have vowed to take a series of steps, very aggressive steps, to make our options product safer for our customers, including changing the customer interface, adding more additional.
I'm gonna refresh it. Hold on a second. Oh, but the GameStop's frozen too.
Pastor, and so I've read your statement. After the tragedy of this young 20-year-old. But I mean, and I don't think you nor I want to get in. I mean, to litigate that right here today. But what improvements did you make in the aftermath to your platform?
There we go. There we go.
Thank you, Congressman.
I had to refresh it.
There
Hold
were
on.
several improvements. One, we added the ability to instant exercise as well as exercise options positions in app. We clarified the display of buying power, specifically negative buying power, in situations where one leg of a complex multi-leg options transaction were to be assigned. We also added an options education specialist. We also added live phone-based customer support for acute options cases, which has gotten very, very great feedback from customers and is something we're expanding to other use cases, such as cases where customers' accounts have had off-platform hacking incidents.
Okay, that's the last one is where I was concentrating on, because this young man was trying to get into your system to find out what was going on. He was confused, he was scared, and so he sent emails. And so you know, and to be fair, there was a
Time's
response,
up.
but it was like, you know, hours later. And so as I became more and more familiar with this particular case,
The gentleman's turn has expired.
Did he not?
Thank you, ma'am.
Did he not
Thank
know
you,
that he was
Chair.
running out of
Appreciate it.
time there?
You're so welcome. Mr. Hill, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, thank
There we
you,
go.
Madam Chair, for holding this hearing. I wanna
Refreshed
thank
it
our
all.
witnesses
Sorry about
for
that.
their expertise and their patience. Madam Chair, I have a letter from the American Securities Association I'd like to insert in the record, please.
Without objection, such is the order.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Tenev, what a treat to see you, and congratulations on being part of the American dream. I had the pleasure working for President Bush 41, of working in Sofia in 1990 and 1991.
Oh my God, we
bring
don't care. These
capitalism to
people
Bulgaria after
are
the wall
supposed to be
fell. So
grilled.
I'm glad to see you're an American citizen and innovating here in our country.
Thank you.
I think you've done a good job talking about the, I'd say the acknowledged lesson that you've learned in terms of these deposits for clearing and the important risk management issue for your firm. So I'd like to turn to follow up on some of the discussions about retail service that you've also touched on today. Do you have a call center generally for Robinhood investors?
Thank you for that question, Congressman. And I want to start by saying customer service is fundamental to everything that we do, and it's one of the areas where we're investing the most. We have customer service centers in a number of states: Colorado, Florida, Texas, and Arizona, and we're looking to expand aggressively.
Well, do you have a call center that I can call, a 1-800 number, if I'm having a trouble in the middle?
We're working on that. We're
do
working
offer,
on that.
Congressman, live phone support in app for certain use cases. We're expanding that as fast as we can. So as I mentioned earlier, options, advanced options cases, as well as account takeovers, which typically happen through a customer's personal email who's been compromised. And the feedback's been great, and we're looking to expand the live phone channel, as well as make improvements to our email channel and even upstream within the product.
Thank you. That's helpful. And on the subject of margin and options, you've talked about that today, but you know, I've spent 40 years in this business and been the general securities principal in 3 different firms, and this issue of granting margin and option approval to retail clients is always an important issue. You've addressed that today, so I want to turn to a different topic that has not been raised, and that's low dollar stocks. As I understand it, your policy and procedure manual simply said that you allow low dollar stocks if they're on an exchange, but many brokerage firms are very reticent to allow retail investors to invest in stocks that are under $5. Could you address that issue today?
Yes, I'd be happy to, Congressman. So Robinhood allows customers to trade in and invest in exchange listed securities. So that's the objective criteria that we use. And it actually excludes several types of securities that customers commonly request to trade in. So on Robinhood, you can't trade over-the-counter bulletin boards, except in limited cases where a listed stock falls to over-the-counter. You can't trade pink sheets. And of course, you can't short sell or enter undefined risk options trades.
Okay.
So our objective criteria involve whether exchanges list these securities.
Thank you, and I think that probably, I'm sure you'll.
None of these congressmen did any research before this. They just figured they'd ask the questions instead of research it.
Thank you for being here. The Wall Street Bets Reddit platform. I'm curious, when you think about the obligation of this SEC pending investigation, based on your FINRA background, do you think the SEC should look at the bulletin board participants under Section 9A2 or potentially inducing trading in a certain direction? Is that worthy of their review?
Thank you for the question, Congressman. I think that there's been little evidence to this time that there's been any sort of false or deceptive conduct taking place on the Wall Street Bets Forum. That does not mean, though, that I think that the SEC should not take a deeper look. Because of the anonymity
what the hell did
in the
Reddit have anything to do with
there
it?
could have been people that were engaging in deceptive behavior that's not readily
It's
apparent
the
to outside,
internet.
To the public. So I do think the SEC should look, but to this point, I've seen very little that would meet a test for manipulation, which generally involves false or deceptive behavior.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Mr. Tiev, I thought of another question for you. Would a securities transaction tax be beneficial to retail investors in the United States?
What?
Thank you, Congressman. I don't believe it would.
Thank you.
Gentleman's time has
What?
expired.
What a stupid question.
We will take a short recess. The committee stands in recess for 5 minutes. Thank you.
I mean, what is even happening right now? This is such a waste. It's an exercise in futility. Like, I didn't go into this expecting much, and I feel like I'm getting even less than what I expected. Asking Vlad, do you think that you should have a tax? Like, why? What kind of answer would you expect out of that outside of no? Like, it's crazy. These Congress people and business people can go screw themselves. They're the dumbest question I've seen. What's this got to do with anything? I think that's the problem. Is there's no direction here. There's no. They don't even know who the criminal is, and I think that's what this is trying to figure out. But it feels like it's a bunch of people walking through a cave in pitch black darkness, and they have no idea where anything is, and they're just kind of feeling around, and they haven't done any research, they haven't looked at the map, they don't know anything about this cave, they're just kind of feeling their way around it. It did start off pretty good. Can you say filibuster? I know it's not a bill, but it's like a meeting with Mark Zuckerberg, and Congress was like, how do you make money? Ads? I remember that, and that was brutal. God, I don't know. I don't know how long this is going to be going for. I'm still invested in GameStop as well, Pika. It's just the government pretending to look like they care. It is, but it's also put an unnecessary stress on the markets over the past week and a half. Ever since they announced they were going to be doing this, it's just been like a downward pressure on the market. And once this passes, because this too shall pass, nothing will come from it, and the market will go right back up again from it. But it's frustrating that these people have to try to grandstand and pretend like they're making a difference. But it is. It's like watching paint get dry. It is. It's 100% what it is. Smash the like button. Yes, thank you, Lance. GameStop has been a great company. It's getting there. I feel like they could certainly stand to improve quite a bit. I'm investing in the future prospects of them, not necessarily what they are at the present. I feel like they have a lot of catalysts to make them a great company in the future. Just for example, I ordered the new Mario game. I pre-ordered it like a month ago, and I didn't get it until like 5 or 6 days after release day. I got it like 2 days ago, so I think that was that Monday? Yeah, it was like 5 days after launch. And I saw an advertisement on Facebook for GameStop saying, get the new Mario game, same day delivery if you order now. And I'm just like, I pre-ordered it a month ago. And then I did some research on it. I was like, oh, if you pay the $10 fee, DoorDash plus like tips and stuff like that. I'm like, that's not, it's kind of misleading. So I feel like there's a large area of improvement for GameStop still. And I feel like Ryan Cohen will potentially bring that. But as of right now, like this whole situation with the stock, it exceeded $400 in share price, and I don't think anyone on this House committee understands why. I think they're thinking that it was idiot retail investors that were just throwing their money at an exciting thing because Elon Musk tweeted about it. When in reality, it's like, no, these were knowledgeable investors. Most of them found out about it through Reddit and how it was a gigantic massive short squeeze that was predicted months before it actually happened because of the crazy short interest leading up to it. And I don't know how these Congress people get the positions they're in without knowing the basics of the market. It's just crazy to me. They should also focus on failed to deliver, but I don't think they even know what failed to deliver is. Naked short selling. They mentioned, one of them mentioned that, but they didn't focus on it. I don't know. I could keep this stream going and keep doing this, but I just don't see where it's going. I mean, I'll still watch it. I'll still keep it on in the background, but do you guys want me to keep streaming this? You tell me, because it's kind of it's boring as fuck. I'm not gonna lie. Like they're not doing anything beneficial to anyone right now except getting FaceTime. That's how I'm feeling about it. I think these Congress people do know, they just don't care. I'm sorry, but I don't trust any congressperson, liberal or conservative. I think that's a fair way to go through life. I think there's a lot of people that genuinely set out with the best intentions when they go into Congress, but I think they're quickly manipulated. Yeah, keep going. Why not? This is work. This is pain. What they say, it was going to be a 5-minute recess. I am a little bit surprised that they haven't involved Roaring Kitty more. Why have him there if you're not going to ask him any questions? You know what I mean? I think it's good that he is there to give the perspective of the retail investor, but they're not asking that. They already have their minds made up that the retail investors are a bunch of belligerent gamblers that have no idea what they're doing. That's literally how every one of these Congress people look at a retail investor. I say keep going. This is personal, but it's nice to talk to someone right now. All right, Ring Fit. I'll keep it going. I'll keep going for a little bit longer. I'm not gonna. I mean, if this is only halfway through, I don't know how long it's gonna last for. But if this is gonna go for another 3 hours, I don't know if I'm gonna do that much. But we'll see. Roaring Kitty spoke once. Yeah. No. Well, I mean, he had his opening statement, which was fantastic, and then they asked him a question, and his response was fantastic, and that was it. He's just kind of hanging out there. It's more fun to watch with the chat, to be honest. Yeah, I agree.
You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Oh, here we go. We're back.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Mr. Gill, let's start with you since you seem to have started all of this. You began analyzing GameStop in the summer of 2019. Was that your testimony?
Congressman, I've been following GameStop for a number of years. I started to buy into it in June of 2019, most recently.
Hey, so back then, what was the price of the stock when you started investing in it?
At the time, it was in the ballpark of around $5 per share.
Okay, and in your analysis, what did you think the proper price for the share was? Because you thought you were getting a good buy.
Sure. At the time, I thought that the value of the business could be worth up to roughly $2 billion.
Okay, but how much is that per share? Just bring it back to you bought it 5, you thought it was worth 10, 20?
I felt as though that it could be worth, at the time, in the range of, say, $20 to $25 per share.
Okay. And you continued to invest on and off through 2019 and 2020, is that true?
Yes.
Okay, and you also, you bought some shares, but you also did some options trading, did you not?
Correct, I did.
And options trading is not really for the novice investor, is it?
It is a riskier investment, yes.
Okay. On January 27th, I think the stock price hit $483 or something like that. Is that true?
I believe it was in that area, yes.
In your analysis, back when you started investing in the stock, did you ever see it being valued at $483 per share?
Why is this
At the time,
matter?
I thought it was possible, but a very low probability, I thought.
Okay, thank you.
Good answer. Very good answer.
Just a couple more questions. In terms of the platforms where you visited and discussed this stock with others, one was the Reddit subreddit Wall Street Bets platform, correct?
Correct.
And at any given time, how many people were you talking to on that platform?
I wasn't so much talking to anyone individually, but rather making posts on that public forum.
That GameStop was an attractive stock.
No.
Yeah, early on I had felt that it was an attractive investment opportunity, and I had shared some of my thoughts as to why that was.
Did you discuss this on any other platforms? Are there any other kinds of Reddit or other kinds of platforms that you talked about the stock?
Yes, I have talked about the stock on some other platforms.
Did you ever talk about the short sellers that had bet against this company?
That's part of the analysis.
About when did that occur?
Oh, since around the time I had begun investing in it, it was, as someone else has known, it was an exceptional level of short interest in the stock since the time I had started investing in it.
Okay. Let me turn my attention now to you, Mr. Plotkin. When did Melvin first take a short position in GameStop?
Thank you, Congressman. That was in 2014, really right at our inception of the fund.
And when you did that, did you continue to maintain a short position?
That's correct.
So you said you analyzed the value of the stock, and you, by taking a short position, you, unlike Mr. Gill, thought that the stock was overpriced. He thought it was underpriced. You thought it was overpriced.
That's a good conclusion. Yes.
Okay. In your analysis, when you started into the short position, what do you think the stock was worth?
You bet on bankruptcy.
I don't remember exactly at the time. I think when we launched, it was probably a $40 stock. I think we believe the company had a lot of structural challenges. We've seen their earnings go from, I think, north of $3 a share to almost negative $3 a share. So there's been a lot of challenges fundamentally.
Right. Last question for you. Were you in a naked position in your short position?
Oh, there we go.
Because the stock was oversold?
No, our systems won't even allow that. So
right. Of course they wouldn't.
Okay.
Sure.
Well, thank you. My time's expired. I wanted to get some facts out for Mr. McHenry, and I yield back.
Thank you very much. The gentleman's stick number?
Thank you.
Nice for 5 minutes.
Is that a kid that was just running in the background?
Chair, Ranking Member McHenry, for holding this hearing. Thank you to the witnesses for being here today. I represent the 1st Congressional District of New York, which encompasses much of Suffolk County on Long Island. My home district is full of people from all different walks of life and industries, and having access to cost-efficient investing is crucial. While there are always ways to make a system work better, our capital markets are the envy of the world with their liquidity and diversity of investment opportunities. Innovations in securities trading brought by the private sector have increased access for retail investors. For better or for worse, and this situation is a perfect example. For example, one of our witnesses here, Mr. Gill, or should I say Roaring Kitty, turned $53,000 into almost $50 million, and that's what.
Well, he never sold it at that point.
You know what value. Of course, we know that not all those who invested in these stocks share the same success story.
How is that Keith
However,
Gill's
I want to highlight
fault?
a potential vulnerability in these innovations. I've been concerned for some time in general with the sharing of U.S. individual user data with the Chinese Communist Party,
I can
sent a
tell
letter, for
Bullcraft. I can
example,
already
to the
tell this
Treasury
guy is bought and
Department in
sold.
October
Just the way he's
2019,
talking.
expressing concern with the potential sharing of user information by TikTok to its parent company ByteDance and asked for a CFIUS review. Chinese companies are required by law to regulate online behavior that deviates from the political goals of
Okay,
the
so this guy
CCP,
wants to turn America to
obey
the CCP?
CCP's censorship
Gotcha.
directives, and participate in China's espionage. These policies regulate companies like TikTok in the China market and increasingly their overseas business. Webull and Moomoo are two examples of broker-dealers that are subsidiaries of Chinese parent companies. According to Bloomberg, funds affiliated with Xiaomi Corp own at least 14% of Webull. Xiaomi is a Chinese company that risks being delisted from U.S. exchanges after the U.S. Department of Defense put the company on a blacklist on January 14, 2021. Moomoo is owned by Futu Holdings, which is a company that received a significant investment from entities affiliated with Tencent, a company with known ties to the CCP. On December 8, 2020, Bloomberg Businessweek ran an article on Webull stating the company, quote, has increased its roster of brokerage clients by about tenfold this year to more than 2 million by offering free stock trades with a slick online interface. On January 29, 2020, the day after trading activity for long trades on certain stocks discussed on Reddit threads were limited, Bloomberg ran an article with the headline, Robinhood rival Webull sees 16-fold jump in new trading accounts. It's clear that these apps have rapidly increased their user base, which has me concerned.
He has 5 minutes to talk.
Do you think we should be concerned about the potential
literally
for
didn't even ask a question the whole
Chinese
time.
entities with ties to the CCP receiving personally identifiable
Time's gonna be up before they can even
information or
answer.
other user data from their subsidiary broker-dealers that are licensed and registered in the U.S.?
I think it's a potential national security concern, which is a bit outside of my area of expertise. What I can say is that the rules that the brokers have to apply and comply with regarding personally identifiable information and other material data should be applied equally to companies that are based offshore and companies that are based onshore. And I hope that that's the case with respect to Webull or any other competitors that are not.
What's up, Bruce?
Having a diversity of choice for different trading apps is
Time's
generally
up.
good for market competition.
This guy was terrible.
However,
Next.
Is it good for? Is it a good outcome?
Jake
for
Randall,
millions
what's
of
going on, buddy?
Americans to flood into trading apps that could be required to share user data to parent companies that have ties to the CCP?
Jake Randall shows up during the guy talking about ties to the
as well as
CCP.
understanding from a consumer perspective what companies you are choosing to do business with. Again, the national security concerns are a bit outside of my area of expertise.
Well, I thank you for
Thanks,
being
man.
here. This is another angle to this issue with these new options that are being provided to average retail investors. And we want these retail investors to have the most amount of information as possible to be set up for success. I yield back.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hines, you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and a big thank you to
That guy
our
was
panel
terrible.
today for
Bullcraft,
very
you were
interesting
right. That guy was
conversation.
terrible.
One of the chairwoman's ways
What's
of
up,
characterizing
numbnuts?
this hearing was who wins and who loses, and I've spent a bunch of time in the last couple of days looking at the various players here. I'm pretty convinced that the wholesalers, Citadel is one of the winners. They make a lot of money. They're the casino in this story, and the casino tends to win over time. Robinhood has a valuation of $5.6 billion and makes a lot of money from the casino. So who loses? And I want to spend some time talking about the person who usually loses, and that's the retail investor. And while I have supported for many years the democratization of finance, as we say, it's not just in Washington, D.C., but on Wall Street. The retail investor is known as dumb money. And there are any number of structures that are set up to take advantage of the retail investor. And I think it's worth looking at that because as much as we're celebrating Mr. Gill here, we're not talking very much about Mr. Salvador Vergara.
That's right, Dave.
In a Wall Street Journal story, who took out a $20,000 personal loan through Robinhood, invested it in GameStop, only to see the value of his position go down 80%.
Yeah.
So Mr. Vergara is out $16,000.
Who's taking out personal loans to invest in a stock?
And
You've
as
been a
much as I
mental
support the
hospital.
democratization of finance, we need to be thoughtful about this. So, Mr. Tenev, my question is for you. You quoted a $35 billion number as what I interpreted to be profits in excess of deposited funds and securities. If you just look at your customers who traded in GameStop over the period of its increase and subsequent decrease, Mr. Tenev, how did your customers in the aggregate do? Did they win or did they lose?
Thank you, Congressman, for that question. I don't have that particular cut of the data top of mind, so maybe we can get back to you on that one.
All right, you don't have that. So you do have a $35 billion figure. The figure doesn't mean a lot to me because it's just a dollar number. Help me convert that to a rate of return. First of all, is that $35 billion, is that gross or net? In other words, is that actual profit or does it include margin shares, other forms of leverage that may actually not belong to the account holder?
It does include, Congressman, unrealized gains. So it's the value of assets, both including positions in securities and cryptocurrencies.
Okay, I get that. I get that. But again, 35 billion doesn't mean anything to me unless you can convert that into a rate of return. So do that for me. What is that on what asset under management number is that 35 billion unrealized against?
I don't know what he's even asking.
The asset under management number is not one that Robinhood has publicly shared.
Okay, but you can't share $35 billion. Sorry, Mr. Tenev, I just don't have a lot of time. $35 billion is a meaningless number. I need to know what that is in terms of return. So convert that for me into rate of return. So I can compare it to Treasury, so I can compare it to the S&P 500.
Congressman, with respect,
I don't have that
the
information.
Proper comparison is to customers not investing at all. Much of our customers are investing for the first time and are taking money that they otherwise would have spent or consumed and putting it in.
Mr. Tenev, again, I don't want to be rude, but it's my time. Again, you offered up the $35 billion number, which, as you and anybody else schooled in finance knows, is meaningless unless you convert it into a rate of return. So just please convert that $35 billion number, which to the folks watching at home sounds like a lot of money, but what does that actually convert to in terms of rate of return, which is what matters?
Congressman, $35 billion is indeed a large amount of money, especially for our customers who are mostly small investors. It's more than most corporations, nearly all corporations have paid.
Mr. Tenev, again, don't make me be rude here. You and I both know that $35 billion of unrealized gains, if that's on a base of $100 billion, that's a 35% of return. If that's under $1 trillion, it's a radically different rate of return. So what I'm trying to get at, Mr. Tenev, here is you threw out the number of $35 billion. I actually think the right comparison is what if your clients had simply invested in the long run in an S&P index fund? Would that number be more than $35 billion or less?
Congressman, with respect, I don't believe the right comparison is investing in an S&P index fund. I think the right comparison is not having invested at all and having instead spent that money and consumed it.
No, it's most certainly not. It's most certainly not, Mr. Tenev. And so I'm going to ask you, I'm out of time, but again, you put out the $35 billion number, so I think it's only...
This guy needs to be
you and I both
put in a court of law to testify because he's just not answering questions. They need to subpoena this guy.
Obviously, I'm out of time into a rate of return for us.
You're out of time. Mr. Laudermilk, you now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate all the members of the panel being here. I think you've seen that there are occasions...
What's that ringing noise on this guy when he talks?
The committee here that if you're not giving them the answer that they want, that they can use, they're just going to continue to push on you. And
oh God, this guy's already bought and sold by Citadel. You can tell.
Continue speaking the truth, and you'll always stand up head and shoulders above everyone. Not surprisingly, the situation with GameStop trading has resulted in commentators and even some of my colleagues
Bad Wi-Fi.
engaging in knee-jerk reactions, calling for new laws and regulations to be hastily enacted. It just seems to be a trend in Washington, D.C. to never let a
I know it's a
crisis go
dog
to waste.
whistle.
Some have even spread conspiracy theories and alleged that crimes were committed before knowing what even happened. I can even testify to what was just being said is I know numbers of people, personal friends who have never invested before, but because of Robinhood and other retail platforms,
Louder
many
milk.
of them took the stimulus money that they received during the CARES Act.
How dare them?
Which they were still working, they didn't need, and they
And
actually
they
started
invested
an
it.
account and
Well,
started investing.
horrible,
So yes, more and
horrible.
more people who have never invested before are now investing using these platforms. This hearing is a reminder that with complex situations, we should take time to understand what actually did.
How come every time he makes a point, he talks to the camera like this?
This GameStop situation.
He's like he's going back
Now,
and
the
forth
SEC
like
is
this
the proper
when he's
authority
talking.
to determine if any rules were broken, and they are looking into it. Congress has already given the SEC broad authority to oversee the capital markets, and we do not need to rush to enact even more big government regulations until we that could ultimately harm the investors. Now, question, Mr. Tennant, can you remind us again why Robinhood temporarily paused trading of GameStop and other stocks?
Of course, thank you, Congressman.
Let's see what his answer is this
Robinhood
time.
paused trading temporarily, or I should say paused buying of about 13 securities on Thursday so that we could meet our regulatory deposit and collateral requirements.
Okay, so what you're saying is you were paused because you had to comply with regulations. Is that true?
Correct.
All right.
So why
it's
didn't you
ironic
halt
that people
the
who are
stock?
criticizing brokerage firms because they pause trading, which they sometimes have to do to comply with regulations.
This
The
guy's
same
an
folks are now
apologist
saying,
for
"We need to
Robinhood."
respond to
Wow.
this with more regulations. I would say if people don't like brokers occasionally having to pause trading, I'd suggest they look at the regulations that required it. At some point, we need to recognize that piling on more and more regulations only increases complexity and does not help investors.
This guy really thinks that there's no connection between Citadel, Plotkin, Melvin Capital, and Robinhood. He literally thinks there's no connections there at all. Nothing nefarious happened. That's his mentality here.
Broken. In fact, they are working well. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I think most reasonable people that are listening to this would agree that there are regulations in place. The SEC has those to pause activities that could be harmful, not only to the markets but to the individual investors.
So you don't think pausing the ability to buy was not harmful to the individuals? Is that what you're saying, Louder Milk?
As the facts that I know now, it does appear to have worked the way it was supposed to. This is not a sign to me that the market is broken.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin, what are some of the issues that policymakers should consider in the T+2, T+1, T+0?
Yeah, let's ask
Obviously,
the most crooked guy in the room on what policies they should make.
Transactions, but faster settlement and lower margin requirements can be positive.
Oh my God, my head hurts listening to
And we
this.
need to balance those needs. Can you address what some of the issues are in the T2, T1, and T0 debate?
So, Congressman, I cannot profess to be an expert on these issues, but I will give you my perspectives from having been in the district for 30 years. We started at T5. We will one day be at real-time settlement. And the question is how long does that journey take? From T2 to T1, which reduces the amount of capital required by broker-dealers
Exactly,
to
Ring
meet
Fit.
the needs of their customers. That reduction in capital will be meaningful. Would have been very helpful to Robinhood during this period of time. Reduces counterparty risk holistically, which is good for everybody in the market. We should push toward T1.
So it would have been beneficial for Robinhood so they wouldn't have to halt trading. Coming from the guy who owns the company that bailed out Melvin Capital for losing too much money.
To be functioning every moment of every day with no room for error. At a T1 settlement cycle.
Let me remind the members that we're going to have a series of hearings Today is the first, there will be probably two more. I didn't hear anyone here today say that they were ready to pile on regulations. So let's make sure we know that our statements are accurate. Mr. Pastor, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to our witnesses. Mr. Tenov, I'd like to follow up a little bit on payment for order flow and best order execution issues. Democratization of finance is a good and noble goal, but for democracy to work, consumers need transparency and high quality information, and not only about fees, but about order execution quality. Your customers actually don't care directly about who you subcontract order execution to or any payment for order flow, but they need a simple way to compare the execution quality between your app and competing apps or other accounts. And while institutional investors can afford to run their own tests, and they do, and I'm sure Mr. Griffin is normally is quite often on the receiving end of those tests and trying to measure up to his competitors to compete for market share there. The institutional investors have the market power to demand best execution statistics for their prime brokers, and everyday investors do not get the same transparency. In fact, I believe there's an SEC rule 606, that requires brokers to disclose at least some order execution data to institutional investors, but this requirement does not apply to retail investors. So, Mr. Tenov, since Robinhood's mission is to democratize finance for all, I ask, what are the mechanisms that you would accept and support to provide transparent order execution quality statistics so that your customers can engage in a clean apples to apples comparison between other brokers, between your app and other people's apps in terms of the total cost of trading?
Thank you, Congressman, for that very important question. I'm
Oh my God.
in favor of a greater amount of transparency than what we've typically seen in the financial industry.
Right.
And
Sure
recently, Robinhood and me personally have engaged publicly on the topic of payment for order flow, short selling, and of course T+2 and real-time settlement. We do publish 606s via Robinhood Securities that detail our payment for order flow arrangements with various market makers. And just this past year, the industry implemented more detailed 606 requirements, which we of course conform to. Also, back in December of 2020, we released a public page on our website that provided detail about the execution quality, including price improvement that our customers received. And we're proud to announce in 2020, our customers received in aggregate over $1 billion of price improvement on their executions.
Right, but that's not a comparison to your competitors. There are a lot of questions about the accuracy of the best execution reference price. And independent of whether it should be improved, it seems like if I was a customer of you or one of your competitors, what I'd want to see is, I just executed a trade of $2,000 and on average I got
GameStop now at a new low of the day right now.
Reference price. And then over time, and see not only the trade that I just executed, but perhaps a running average over the last month or two that you can compare to the running average of whether you're exceeding some benchmark for trade execution quality that can really be compared with potential competitors. And is that a workable system? Are there difficulties? Is there a reason why industry should move that way in the name of transparency to customers?
Congressman, this is a very interesting topic to me.
Very good question. Thank you so much for that
I don't
question.
know if this is the right forum to necessarily ideate and brainstorm on all the solutions, but I just want to say I'd be happy to engage with this in a detailed forum and figure out the right path.
Okay, well, yeah, we do intend to continue to engage with the industry on this subject because it's very easy to make payment for order flow sound really creepy. You're basically selling a list of rubes to the sharks. Okay, on the other hand, you make part of an argument that this can net out positive for consumers, but for it to fully net out positive, they have to be able to make the apples to apples comparison. And so that's, I think really important issue. And I think that probably your reaction to that, if you found your customers were leaving you because of poor execution quality, you would do what large funds do, which is to split your order flow between multiple order execution firms and then demand of them the best order execution and move
Yeah, but
their
Robinhood is
business
bought
to
and
whoever
paid
does
for
the
and
best
owned
for
by
their customers.
Citadel, so that's never going to
we already
happen.
do that. We have 7
Time has
market
expired.
If you have 7, then why
Mr.
did you have to
Mooney, you're
halt trading?
recognized for 5 minutes.
I smell BS.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So let me just start by saying the last Congress, 30 of my Democrat colleagues, 4 of whom on this very committee, co-sponsored a bill that
I can't even hear this guy.
financial transaction tax on the purchase of securities.
Here's another guy that talks like this to his camera.
And just recently, after the market volatility surrounding GameStop in January, Democrats renewed the call. Many Democrats anyway renewed the call for.
I haven't seen it yet, Bruce.
Tax. On just January 28th, Congresswoman Ileana Omar tweeted, "How about this? Financial transaction tax now." Congressman Peter DeFazio is the lead sponsor of the bill. He's already put the bill back in for this session of Congress. It's now House Resolution 328 of 2000. So it's called the Wall Street Tax Act of 2021. I actually have a copy of it from the last session here. It's in again now. And he says, Congressman DeFazio says that a financial transaction tax would, quote, help create a more level playing field for Main Street. So with that background, Mr. Tenig, this question is directed to you. The Robinhood platform has more than 13 million users, and most of them are small dollar retail investors. If the federal government levied a 0.1% transaction tax on the sale of securities, and I know one of my colleagues, French Hill, my good friend, mentioned this earlier, but I want to expand upon it a little more. How would that 0.1% transaction tax on the sale of securities affect your platform and the retail investors that are your customers?
Thank you.
Why do they want to add a tax? Like, what?
Happy to
how does that have anything to do with anything that the issue is here?
That's
like, it sounds like a way to try to find a way to get money out of this.
Would eat into the returns of our customers,
which,
as you pointed out,
what a ludicrous question.
Smaller investors. In that sense, it would be a cost to the retail investor.
Right, Bruce?
Of course, that would have to be weighed against the potential benefits of this tax. And I know it's a more complicated issue than meets the eye at first glance.
Okay, well, thank you for that answer. My next question is actually for Jennifer Schlupp. I know you spent your career specializing in financial regulation. In your expert opinion, would a financial transaction tax directly prevent fraud or market manipulation?
No, I don't think a financial transaction tax would have an effect on fraud or manipulation. I also don't think that it ultimately, financial transaction taxes often fail to raise money, and they distort trading in a way that's not necessarily foreseen initially by the tax.
What's up, Retro Complex?
And I'd like to just add in there
this whole situation's a mess.
Financial transaction taxes, while they initially might seem like a small imposition on an individual investor, those taxes often hurt individual investors and their long-term retirement goals by affecting the institutions that also do the trading in mutual funds and with retirement money. I don't think a financial transaction tax is a good idea.
And a quick follow-up to that, Mr. Schlupp, what do you think a financial transaction tax would have done anything to prevent the market volatility and disruption we saw just this past January?
No, I don't think it's related here. There's been some discussion that it might have decreased the amount of trading and thus changed the volatility. It's not my opinion that would have had any effect on this particular circumstance.
Thank you. I only have a minute left, so let me just summarize. The financial transaction tax, supported by many Democrats, would do nothing to prevent market manipulation or fraud, would have not prevented the market disruption in January, and most importantly, would hurt retail investors. Yet Democrats are claiming that the events surrounding GameStop and
Look at
Robinhood
he's trying to turn this into a
make it
political
very
thing here. It's like,
to
can we just
implement
talk
a
about the
financial
problem?
transaction tax. It just doesn't add up. A financial transaction tax would make it more expensive for small retail investors to trade. And so much for looking out for Main Street. I believe we should be working together to find ways to open up markets to retail investors, not close them. Instead of making trade more expensive with a burdensome tax, let's look for ways to empower retail traders. Thank you, Madam Chair. I yield back.
Thank you very much. Ms. Beatty, you're recognized for 5 minutes. Ms. Beatty?
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, and thank you to the witnesses. My first question is to the CEO, President Ken Griffin. In the first 3 quarters of 2020, your company paid online brokerages like Robinhood $700 million for their order flow. Do you believe that brokers like Robinhood can service the best interest of their users while selling their order flow to companies like yours? And that's yes or no.
Congressman,
No one knows how to answer yes or no.
actually goes further in the best interest of customers by in fact routing their order flow to Citadel. We give a better price, a better execution for American retail investors than the alternative of going to exchanges.
So I'm going to take that as a yes, since you said they go further. Then can you tell me, why did your company urge the SEC to ban the payment for order flow models in a filing to the SEC?
Congressman, that is a terrific question. That filing relates to the U.S. options market. It was a filing back, I believe, in 2000.
And GameStop stock is crashing down.
And in the U.S. options market,
Breaking far below 43 now.
Trades were committed against listed quotes. We were apprehensive about the direction in which the U.S. options market was heading towards the existence of these price improvement auctions, which diminished the incentives to aggressively provide bids and offers in the options market. We felt that legislative or regulatory efforts to encourage tight quoting, to discourage the existence of these auctions, and this was being, in some sense, fueled by a series of payment for order flow programs, was in the best interest of American institutional and retail investors. Now, regretfully, we did not prevail in our reasoning. The rise of price improvement auctions came into, in essence, the day-to-day model for options trading in the United States. And I do believe that this is a setback for our capital markets.
So, because my clock is ticking, let me ask you this. So, are you saying that you no longer believe that the model is anti-competitive and distorts order routing decisions?
I think it's important to distinguish between a market where you must trade on an exchange. In the options market, we must print the trade on an exchange, versus a market where you can trade off exchange, which would be the U.S. equities market. So just to be very clear, because your question is very good, every single options trade must be executed on an exchange. Equity trades do not. And because of that, I can save Robinhood exchange fees and offer a tighter bid-ask spread.
Okay, clearly we're going to have a further discussion. Let me interrupt you only because my time is clicking, and I want to follow up with a question for Robinhood's CEO.
For real, Ring
Several
Fit.
of the brokers offer their users order flow for the sale to the firm, like with the previous CEO of Citadel. However, the price that Robinhood gets for the order flow is much higher than any other brokers receives. And I could go on and tell you we've pulled the SEC filings that Robinhood receives 17% per 100 shares stock of traded and 58% to 100 shares, and I could go on. But the question is, why do companies like Citadel pay a premium for their order flows of Robinhood's users?
Thank you, Congresswoman, for that very important question. There's
He
several
literally says
reasons
the
that we
same
could
thing
use
every time
these.
someone asks a question.
One important
Thank you for
one
that
is
very
that
important
our
question.
model,
It's like, just answer the
and
question.
formula for payment for order flow works a little bit differently. We actually receive payment for order flow as a percentage of the bid-ask spread rather than on a per share basis. And we do believe that that's the most optimal way to structure payment for order flow arrangements.
Yeah, for real, Bruce.
Okay, it's not is it not because companies like Citadel can make more money off of Robinhood users than others? And that's a yes or no because my clock is going to run out.
No.
I'm sorry, I yield back. My time is up.
Thank you very much. Next, we will have Mr. Vargas. Excuse me, no, Mr. Davidson next, and then Mr. Vargas. Mr. Davidson, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I thank our witnesses. I appreciate the work you've done today. And I just want to share that in May of 2020, the Depository Trust Clearing Corporation unveiled a working proof of concept called Project Ion. In this project, DTCC said they would examine the potential use of distributed ledger technology in accelerating the clearing and settlement process. Now, since Project Ion was publicly announced, we've received little information pertaining to its progress. As a longtime advocate for this emerging technology, distributed ledger technology and blockchain, today I've sent a letter to the DTCC to request that they provide an update on the status of Project Ion. And I look forward to hearing back from them. Hope to include them in our next hearing. Mr. Griffin, with Project Ion in mind, could you briefly state what would be your biggest concern if DTCC implements same-day clearing and settlement?
Same-day clearing and settlement requires that every bit of the workflow is perfectly synchronized across all parties, and we have no time for recoverability or for error management that you have in an overnight batch process.
Right. So the technology makes that essential. In my assessment, many that is inherent to the architecture for blockchain to move forward with each proof.
This is.
And so.
Oh my God! This is so
clearly
bad.
In your business, just to follow up there, the technology exists where for trading firms that are engaged in high frequency trading, you measure success in the course of a day in what, milliseconds? For high frequency trading?
So, as you know, we are the largest market maker in the world and the largest in the United States.
Yeah, you're the Illuminati. Yes, we know.
We put great emphasis on the performance of our systems. That was one of the reasons that on the week of January 24th, we were the only major market center for retail order flow that was responsive every minute of every trading day.
Perfect. So I just wanted to make the
smell
point
BS
that I think
to
the
that.
technology exists, whether you use blockchain or not, and applaud you for having the ability to execute with precision, swiftly already.
This guy is so boring.
And I'd love to have more dialogue, but unfortunately I have to go to a few others. Mr. Tena, do you believe that the root cause of January 28th for the problems that you and others experienced were market infrastructure related, particularly related to T2 versus T0?
I believe, thank you, Congressman. I do believe if we had real-time settlement capability and the infrastructure was modernized, we would not have seen similar problems.
Yeah, and thanks for that. I think, one of the related things, and it's related to your mission at Robinhood of more democratic access to capital, is not just the ability for more people in a broader portion of America to become savers and investors. It's also to engage in corporate governance even. So do you believe that if market infrastructure would guarantee, this is really related to, the over, musical shares where someone could be left with no share when the music stops, multiple claims on a shorted stock.
Is this guy's time's up yet? He's so boring.
Could retain custody of their shares.
What are you even talking about, Warren Davidson?
There could be a downside. How do you feel that only one claim on the shares would resolve this? And that relates to proxy voting as well, or shareholders voting the shares?
What?
Congressman, I believe that that's an important question. It's one
Oh
that
my God! I
Robinhood
swear, if he says that one
we
more
personally
time.
have engaged with. I do believe that the ability for the same share to be shorted
Exactly,
an
Ringfed.
indefinite number of times is somewhat of a pathology, and that should be fixed. And I think step one of that is modernizing the antiquated settlement infrastructure that everything is built on. We simply don't have the ability to properly track what shares have been shorted and how many times as they're moving through our settlement system currently.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I appreciate that you see the relationship. Hopefully, broadly, we do when we provide that nudge the market needs. I want to commend Vice Chancellor Travis Laster of the Delaware Chancellery Court for his letter and paper, The Blockchain Plunger, which explains how this could be done. And I ask unanimous consent to submit that to the record. As my time expires, I want to commend you, Mr. Gill, for just representing a large segment of the industry, in my view, where savvy investors have had an opportunity to engage. And it relates to people with diamond hands that hold. You might not call yourself a holder, you might use the word diamond hands, but thanks and congratulations for your success.
The gentleman's time has expired, and without objection, your submission is taken. Thank you. Mr. Vargas, you're
Thank you very
minutes.
Thank you very
No,
Chair.
I put him
First
back.
of all, I want to
Don't worry, Bruce.
to Mr. Plotkin. You spoke of the anti-Semitic attacks that you suffered online, and as a person of color, I always feel the need to confront hate speech.
Here we go.
Speak out, and I don't think there's ever been a more hateful, evil, sinful event in human history than the Holocaust. So I want to apologize to you and your family for those attacks. You brought it up, and I think we owe you an apology, and I want to apologize for that.
Oh, for Christ's sakes.
Sometimes I think some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are devoid of any contact with real people when they say this is just political theater, or they don't want to know the rate of return when that's exactly what people want to know. In fact, there's been a great deal of interest in this hearing, and I think it's because there's great distrust in our society and in government, markets, institutions. And then along comes the story of GameStop. And it's a story really of Robinhood turned on its head. And the reason I say that is that Mr. Zuckermeyer brought it up. Robinhood is a English folk hero, 13th, 14th century.
Oh, here we go.
And he was supposed to steal.
Are you really going to tell people who Robinhood is?
And give to the poor.
Oh, my God.
And here you almost have the opposite. You have the situation where you have the steal from the small retail investor and giving it the large institutional investor. From an outsider's perspective, you have the bullies, the hedge funds, and their armies of analysts and lawyers and regular old suits attacking the trust GameStop by shorting its stock. And then to rescue, here comes the retail investors, and they're taking stock to these incredible levels, and all of a sudden, Robinhood steps in, but not to help the little guy. He steps in and says,
this guy's finally saying it.
Stops the sale because no one knows how high this is going to go. And who's getting it? Who's getting socked in this thing? The bullies are, the hedge funds. And that's why people were excited about this. But all of a sudden, Robinhood steps in and they say, no, we had to do this because of other conditions. And my good friends, the Republicans, say it was government. Really, it was, because the government regulations forced them to do this. Well, that's not what the public thinks. The public thinks that there was collusion, that the big guys, all of you guys, were figuring out how to do this and ultimately come out ahead, as you always do. And it seems my colleagues on the other side want to help people. Now, Mr. Griffin, if I could just ask you the first question, how many people are in the room with you? You could just count how many people are in the room with you.
There are 5 people, including myself, in this room, sir.
Awesome.
Thank you. So I don't think my colleagues need to help the CEOs or anybody. They got plenty of help. Now, I have to
that was great.
You said that you didn't talk to anybody at Citadel Securities. Did anyone in your organization since January 1st contact Robinhood?
Are you asking if we've had contact with Robinhood?
With respect to GameStop and what we're obviously talking about.
So, Congressman, we offer to have my colleague who manages that relationship be here today. Instead, he has firsthand knowledge. We, of course, are talking to Robinhood routinely in the ordinary course of business. We manage a substantial portion of their order flow.
Well, I understand that, but did you talk to them about
shutting it down,
restricting, or doing anything to prevent people from buying, not selling, but buying?
Yeah, exactly, Bullcraft. Exactly, I agree.
Anybody in your organization?
To be perfectly clear, absolutely not.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Organization will find that.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. I do want to ask you one thing, and Mr. Sherman was pursuing this.
That's probably the best part of this entire thing so far is what
from your purchase
was right
from
there.
Robinhood with the need to profit from the purchased order flow. How do you do that?
So as a market maker, we have to provide to the customer a better price than they can achieve on exchange. Order flow is routed to us on the merits of the execution quality that we provide, in contrast to our competitors who we are competing with.
Okay, my time's about to expire, but I have to say, when Mr. Tenev, when you say that has made $35 billion, and you don't say how much your people lost on home stocks, people that invested in you, that's like taking the fifth. Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman's time has expired. Mr. Budd?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I want to also thank the panel. Now, I really care about a level playing field for retail investors to access the market. And I've been a long supporter of financial innovation in fintech and the shared goal of democratizing finance and making access to the financial system easier for all. So, Mr. Tennant, your company, it boasts that it's helping to democratize finance and is at the forefront of innovation. Can you talk a little more about?
Oh God, that's not a question. That's to make them feel good.
And create a level playing field for all investors, while at the same time making sure that those investors are well informed.
Useless.
Absolutely, Congressman. Thank you for that very important question.
Oh my God. And on that note, and on that freeze frame, I'm going to end this because I just can't. I can't deal with this. This is like such a smug question from this guy. This is like, you claim to do this. Could you maybe tell us about how you do that? Because it's interesting. I'd love to hear about how you do. Like, we are going on 4 hours into this. We know there's like 12 people that already had that same conversation. We don't need to hear it a 13th time. But man, oh man, this is brutally boring. It's good background noise. It's good, like, if you're doing something else and you have this going on, I guess. It's just, if you're focusing on it like I have been, I can't do this, guys. This is brutal. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep, and the worst part is, nothing ever comes from this. This is just literally, they keep saying it's not political grandstanding while they keep making comments about race, politics, and things that have nothing to do with what happened with Robinhood being in bed with Citadel, bailing out Melvin Capital, like how they're all in collusion with each other. That's what this should be getting to the bottom of. And I've literally, maybe like for like 10 or 20 second snippets here and there, I've seen them hint at that, but then they just shrug it off and don't answer it. So what's the point of continuing this? It's not getting anywhere. You heard Maxine, was it Maxine Waterhouse or Water? I don't know. Maxine said that this is going to be 2 more sessions of this in addition to this. Yikes. I don't know. I'm going to keep listening to it, but I'm not going to keep live streaming it. It's just, I don't have the patience for this. I can't. I'm going to be in and out of it. I'll be fast forwarding it and we'll see what happens. But if anything, what we've witnessed today is exactly what we already all knew. Is the market is bought and paid for by the rich people. And if you're a little guy, you are literally a patron to the casino. You go in and the house always wins. And this GameStop situation exposed that truth. This 100% was, oh, the little guy started winning, shut it down, make up some bullshit excuse to get our asses out of jail, and we need to maybe clarify our policies with people in the future after we just saved ourselves billions of dollars in losses, and maybe, not even definitely, maybe get a slap on the wrist from the SEC if they even do anything in this situation, which I'm starting to wonder. Maxine said that they don't even have a head of the SEC in place with the new Biden presidency currently, or they're doing a transition right now. So the SEC is nowhere to be found in any of this. And that's clear as day too. There should have been a backup process. There should have been a backstop so that if Robinhood had a quote unquote liquidity issue, the federal government would step in and back them. Because, I mean, that's like what the FDIC does with banks. If there's a run on banks, the FDIC is there for them. That's what they should be talking about. But instead, no, it's grandstanding and nothing's going to change. Anyways, I feel like I was more interesting in that 2 minutes right there than the entire 3.5 hours I've been live streaming and just listening to these people go on and on about nothing. But yeah, if there's something that does come up, if it does start getting interesting, I'll start a live stream again. But maybe I'll go for a jog today and make a video on my thoughts on all this. I think you guys can already assume and presume what that's going to be about anyways. By the next time we have another hearing, nobody's going to care anymore. Robinhood Citadel will get away with everything. Exactly. This is like lulling people to sleep with literally stealing right in front of our faces in broad daylight. That's what this is. So, yeah. I'm going to leave it there. But thank you guys for joining me for the stream. I appreciate it. And until next time, you stay smashing.